Hello, hello. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. Welcome. I get some heads up in the comments if you guys can hear me. Hello. Hello, Siyafi Mantolo, Darkrai, Kalu, and Shodite. Or Shodite. I still don't know how to pronounce that. Can you guys hear me all right? Excellent. Welcome. I'm doing something a little bit different this time. I have not done this before. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a story time video, but I thought I might as well make it live. If anybody wants to drop in and, chat, ask questions, send the link over on Discord, and we'll get people in that way. Hello, hello. So yeah, as you probably know, I don't normally explain what I do for my job. And the truth is, I don't actually work loss prevention anymore. But I did work loss prevention. And if Donut Operator can make an entire YouTube channel about police work after working as a police officer for only 3 years, then me working roughly 3 years as loss prevention should be more than enough for a live stream, right? A lot of shit happens in 3 years, especially when you work in a weird environment like retail loss prevention. And so a lot of you knew I worked in security, and that would be one of the ways in which I worked in security. So I've worked loss prevention at actually multiple different locations. Not all of them called loss prevention, but more or less was the same role. And definitely operated in various degrees of, I don't know if I'd say severity, or intensity rather. But all of them were at really big locations. All of them had like huge traffic, lots of traffic at those locations. So it wasn't like, oh, I was like the one LP guy in like some rural suburban store somewhere. No, this was, big city, big business, we're arresting people sort of deal. Loss prevention is the role of a security officer, or is often considered a security officer, who primarily prevents retail theft. They may also dual class as safety and security, which I did. But primarily, the idea of loss prevention is to quote unquote prevent loss. They also sometimes is called asset protection, where basically the idea is, you're keeping the store safe, you're preventing people from walking out the door with stuff that they didn't pay for, and people aren't vandalizing shit or looting the place. And yes, I worked as loss prevention through the riots and through COVID. And man, that was a really shitty experience. Now, I'm not going to say what exactly I did, and I'm not going to say what businesses I worked for, and I'm not going to say like anything terribly sensitive about loss prevention policy. It's worth noting that LP policy varies from company to company, and laws regarding shoplifting also vary from state to state. So anything I put out here is not necessarily applicable elsewhere in the country, let alone in your country, if you happen not to be in the United States, as I am. So I had but I guess you could say an isolated experience in it, but it was again major metropolitan, heavy traffic, big businesses, major corporations, that sort of stuff. A lot of times it wasn't fun, but other times it actually was fun. Have a good one, Luca. So yeah, I actually have a bit of a list here of different characters I interacted with, and I thought I'd just describe my experience with them. Talk about some of the really dumb fucking shoplifters I've dealt with over the years. Some of the way some of the people who actually got away with stuff, some of the crazy shit we had to deal with, and yeah, I'll also be fielding questions that people might have about like retail security and stuff like that. To be clear, I wasn't, you know, merely retail security, like I'm there to break up fights or anything like that. I did do that, but as loss prevention, primary job is to deter loss, or some companies call it shrink. I don't know why they call it shrink. I think it's kind of silly to call it shrink. Some companies are like, we gotta have we gotta talk about shrink culture. You gotta go around to all the different retail departments and talk to the different employees and encourage shrink culture. Like, shut the fuck up. No. We can talk about theft and, you know, the unembarrassing, super, actually serious, you know, actually serious topic of retail thefts. But you want to talk about fucking shrink? Shut up. So yeah, I'll be injecting my personal opinion into this a fair bit as well. Again, I worked at multiple locations, and they didn't all sell the same stuff. So sometimes I'm going to be talking. I think sometimes I'll be talking about theft regarding clothing. Other times I'll be talking about theft regarding electronics, and it'll, you know, kind of spiral from there. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. I can see those right now. If you guys want to drop in, I think I have the invite link on the Discord, so if you guys want to actually chat one-on-one or more, that's cool too. But other than that, I'll just get started. So, unfortunately, I don't have my list in any particular order, but I guess I could talk about the sort of shit that I did. I involved myself in a lot of different aspects of the store, whatever store I happened to work at. Sometimes my responsibility was actually to be the key holder for the store. So I would open and close the store. I would collect everyone's keys at the end of the day. I would also sweep the store and check security devices and all that stuff. And I would also be involved with security cameras, storing footage, recording footage, saving footage, exporting that footage, sharing that out to the police on a case-by-case basis. I would also be involved in arrests. And yes, not all of the jobs I worked at, but some of the jobs actually were hands-on. So I did physically have to arrest people. I have had the illnesses contracted from doing that sort of thing, and I've touched more than enough of public bathroom floors in order to feel that I've gone hands on enough. Anyway, let's see. When I was a kid, I used to rob penny sweets and sell them to 5p each in school. That's the way to do it, isn't it? It's what you call a profit margin. Did you ever work in a Walmart? Now, as I said earlier, I'm not going to say where I worked. You're welcome to speculate on that, but I'm not actually going to say any of the companies I actually worked for, unfortunately. So, sorry about that. Now we know how Omni is such a good editor. Oh, okay. Well, you don't actually do a lot of editing with video footage. Like, it is, and so, like, when I say editing in that context, I mean, all you're doing is just cropping out, like, the footage in question, you know. Um, yeah, basically. Cut from the different cameras that you actually had the incident on in shot for. Clip the areas around the incident, and then you'd export them all as separate files into like a folder somewhere, and then you might burn that to a disk and hand that off to police. Anyway, um, please elaborate on touching the bathroom floor thing. Yeah, okay, so one time we had someone who stole merchandise. I forget what the merchandise was, but one of the things that shoplifters like to do is they like to take stolen merchandise into the restroom. And the reason why they like to take stuff into the restroom is because there's no cameras there. And some policies also prevent, I would guess most companies' policies prevent you from, as a loss prevention, from following people into the restroom, which I guess makes sense. But when the police get involved, that's a whole nother thing. They will go straight into the restroom, knock on your stall, and they'll say, "Get the fuck out." And that happened on one occasion. And this isn't true for all companies also, but at least at one of the companies I worked at, there was a standing expectation where if a police officer is going hands-on with someone, you're welcome to help them. And that ended up happening in one situation where they got this guy out of a restroom stall. They pulled the stolen merchandise off of him. And then as they were, as they were like trying to lead him out, he like took that gentle step forward and then tried to bolt for it. And then we immediately took his feet out from under him and, pinned him to the restroom floor. So, yeah, I was involved in pinning a guy to a really disgusting restroom floor in order to get him in cuffs. I was also trained how to use handcuffs. So I actually had handcuffs on me for a good part of my job as well. I actually have a handcuff case, which I still own as a result of that. I've gone hands-on a few times. It's not terribly often because you might be surprised to know how many people actually comply with you. And it's also worth noting that because people aren't aware of what company policy is, they often don't know what they can get away with. And so it's often to our advantage to keep it ambiguous as to what we're allowed to do per company policy or per the law. And a lot of people have some really stupid ideas of what the law is, but I'll get into that later. So it's come to the point where there's been a situation where I was up at the doors just as some guy was walking out, and he had some merchandise in his jacket, and there's something called guest servicing. You would guest service someone, which is just a polite way of saying, which is the fancy word of saying, you're basically trying to get someone to forfeit merchandise, but you're being, above, you're being on the level with them, or rather, you're playing innocent, basically, right? You're playing innocence, but you're communicating that, I know you got something, man. Hand it over, right? So, for example, I've had it where there was this person isn't actually on my list, but for example, I've had it where this lady came into the store, grabbed some stuff, and I guess her modus operandi was that she would always go and get a gift bag from like the gift wrapping section, and she would conceal everything into the gift bag. And so I got a call over the radio about that. And so I went to that department just as they got there. And so I turned the corner just as she's like mid putting stuff into a gift bag. And I'm like, "Oh, ma'am, I'm sorry. We don't really permit people to put merchandise into the gift bags. We do have baskets right around the corner, though." Like, I'm not accusing her of anything in that moment. and that's, for the company to, cover their own ass for possible like legal suits and stuff like that. Um, but I'm clearly communicating. I got you. You know what? You should probably take that out of the bag and not conceal it. By the way, um, it depends on the state, obviously, or sometimes it might be a city thing. I'm not sure if there's like real city distinctions, but in some states, you need to actually leave the store in order to commit the theft, whereas in other states, you can actually commit theft merely by concealing, which creates a really shitty, like, gray area because a lot of stores sell reusable shopping bags. And they're like, "Hey, it's good for the environment. You should take these reusable shopping bags and come back and shop with them. That way, you stop wasting plastic." Which sounds great and all, but then people do that, and they'll walk into the store and they'll take product off the shelf and they'll put it in their reusable shopping bag, and that technically constitutes theft in that state. But they eventually like go up to the cash register and still buy it legitimately. 99% of people ignorance of the law itself. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I'm really enjoying this story. Oh, wait till I get to the actual good stuff. We're just getting started. Okay, so I guess I'll throw out a few different ideas. Should I talk about the laptop guy? Should I talk about poop guy? Should I talk about poop guy number 2? Yes, there are 2 poop guys I knew. There was there was a lady who went by Slash. I'm gonna try to give these guys, like, I know a lot of these people's real names just off the top of my head because I dealt with them so many times, but I'm not gonna use their like real names or full names or anything like that. I dealt with identical twins. There was this guy. I'll call him Mr. C. There was also a Mr. L, and there was also a Mrs. L who spat in my face. We were talking about loss prevention stories that I was involved with. First poop guy number 2, obviously. It fits the theme of poop. All right, we're going to go with poop guy number 2. All right. So, poop guy number 2, I don't know what it was. There's on a lot of properties, we're talking about retail shoplifting. Hudicola and Andres Cruz talking about retail shoplifting. Anyway, so there's this guy. Actually, there's just this theme that if there's empty space anywhere, and you sell anything like people nurse out of a habit, like for example, if you work near a liquor store, or if you sell nicotine patches or cigarettes, or even fucking bottles of Listerine, addicts just swarm on your location. They will set up shop directly outside your store. If you're at a gas station, they will live outside your gas station because they know they can go in and steal cigarettes anytime. If you work at like a department store that sells wine, they will live outside and they will come in and they will steal wine. Interested in the identical twins? We'll get there. Anyway, dealt with so many fucking drunk people. I've dealt with so many fucking drunk people. And before I ever did loss prevention, I was like, I'm not someone who really has like the nose for what even weed is, because I've never done it in my life before. I don't drink either. I'm fucking straight edge. And so I couldn't say what like the telling signs of someone being drunk is, or whether or not like someone just smoked a doobie or anything like that. 2.5 years later, suddenly, oh, okay, well, smells like someone was just smoking something really rank in the restroom over there. So yeah, we had a bunch of drunk people. They would come in, they would sit down in areas they're not supposed to be. They would fall asleep in the restrooms. Sometimes they would fall asleep on the sales floor. I've had it off. Usually that's the case of someone who's on like some sort of drug, like heavy depressants, where they'll come in into the sales floor. They'll have like a basket of merchandise and everything, right? And then they'll like be nestled in between an aisle, and they'll be standing up, slumped over with their fingers almost brushing the floor, trying to stay awake. They're that fucking put out. I had to deal with so many fucking drug addicts. Anyway, poop guy number two. Poop guy number two was a drunk. And for whatever reason, he decided to come in one day, sit right inside the doors, and refused to move. I originally saw him. He came in, he like leaned up against the wall, and then there's that moment where I'm watching him because he looks kind of sketchy, but then he slumps down onto the floor and he doesn't look like he's about to get back up. So I walk over there and I'm like, "Hey man, can you can't be sitting in here." And he's slurring his words. "Who are you?" And can tell right away he's drunk. And I'm like, "Can you stand up?" He's like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Now we got someone who is sitting down and on the floor, can't stand up. They're fucking drugged out of their mind." And the thing that's the thing that makes him poop guy, and it's hard to process because in the moment I'm like, "Man, this guy looks dirty." But then I realize he's actually covered in feces. Like he's wearing a hoodie with poop caked all inside the hoodie. And his fingers have poop caked up all over in the nails. Like he's been digging in his own ass crack for like the past 2 hours. He is so disgusting. Did not want to fucking touch this guy. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, Mule. Mid-transaction, drop to their knees asleep. I haven't had that happen. But I have had people... I actually have had a lot of people, like, keel over in checkout before. This guy's just covered in fucking shit. And it's disgusting as hell. And the thing is that I could... Like, I remember him being in the store earlier, and when I was in the store, actually, I remember what it was now. I was called to the restroom because there was like some people drinking in the restroom. That's what it was, right? So I was called to the restroom because there were people drinking in the restroom. I went in there, nobody was in there. Oh my god, fuck off. Sorry, someone's trying to call me. I'm not gonna answer it. Hopefully it just shuts the fuck up. Okay, if it's not gonna shut the fuck up, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna have to mute it. 1 second. So professional, man. Oh. Don't do that again. There we go. Sorry about that. Oh yeah, poop guy actually means poop. That's how that works. So yeah, I had answered a call. I had answered a call about people drinking in the restroom, and I went in there and there was nobody in there. But when I was in there, I was like, "Man, it smells fucking disgusting." Someone just, someone just, it's disgusting. Someone like had rancid diarrhea or something, and I call out, it's like, "No one's in the restroom. Smells disgusting, but whatever." And then sometime later, this guy comes in, slumps down, sits down. I walk up to him, and that's when I smell the same fucking thing. And that's when I realize he's covered in shit. So this guy was drinking in our restroom, and then he somehow covered himself in shit and decided to plop down right in our entrance. Fucking disgusting, man. Oh yeah, peak city life indeed. So we eventually the thing is that some of my jobs actually involved me working with off-duty police officers. So police officers would get hired to actually work on sites and assist loss prevention. So when I've said I've worked with police officers before, even in the same office as police officers before, dead serious. This is why. I'm actually still doing that, by the way, but I'm not going to say what job I'm working now. Anyway, so I'm telling this guy, is like, you gotta go. You can't be in here. You're covered in poop. That should be more than enough. You can't be in here. You gotta go. He's like, no, no, call the police, call the police. And this has happened many times before, and it's very satisfying in the moment where they're like, oh, call the cops, call the cops. What you gonna do about it? Blah, 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 blah. And then that's when, the police officer who I radioed earlier walks up behind me, and he's like, stand up. He's like, oh, yes, officer. Total 180. Some people will be the biggest shit-sucking assholes on the planet to your face until someone with a badge shows up. And then they're like, oh, yes, absolutely. I am the most law-abiding citizen in the world. We got a nice picture of him in his poop-caked hoodie for our trespass log. That was very satisfying. I'll save poop guy number 1 for later, because it was kind of a bit much to open the stream with poop tales. But anyway, so yeah, that should give you at least an early impression of the kind of foul shit I had to deal with. So let's talk about some other guys. There's a guy who I still deal with to this day, actually, and I call him Throat Cold Guy. This was also involving the restroom, where I got a call that there was someone sleeping in the restroom. So I go to the restroom, and there's this old motherfucker with a long, crusty beard laying down in the corner. And I'm like, hey, man, can't be sleeping in here. This isn't a public restroom. I mean, we here's the thing. It's like, it's private property. When you say something is a public restroom, we're meaning that it's open to the public. That is not to say that it is public property. That very simple fact evades like 80% of the people I deal with. And it's super frustrating. It's like, oh, this is a public space, man. Fucking, freedom of speech and all that. I've had so many fucking freedom of speech arguments thrown at me when I'm trying to kick someone off of private property. I'm like, nah, the First Amendment does not prevent you from getting booted off of property because you're screaming racial slurs at the top of your lungs. Shut the fuck up. Get out. What you're gonna do about it is the worst fucking attitude. I had enough of that when I was working in food delivery. Surprising number of drunkards tried to rob me out of clients' food. Man, that sucks, man. Yeah, homeless people. This guy was a homeless guy. I call him Throat Cold Guy because when I first dealt with him, like when I walked up to him and I tried talking to him, and we had like an officer there, and there were, multiple loss prevention agents right there. He mumbled something under his breath about how his throat hurts. And I just remembered that. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but I remembered that. Eventually, we actually got him up out of the restroom, and the police officer actually got really fucking pissed at him because he was something that homeless people like to do is they like to make trivial requests for an ambulance. And the shitty part of it, there's a lot of shitty parts about the ambulance and how that works, but it's like, if there's like a good-natured, if there's a reasonable request for an ambulance, like this guy's drunk, he can request a trip to detox. But so many people request trips to detox just so they can get a free ride to, basically just get a free ride to the other side of town, right? Or maybe they get something at detox that they don't get anywhere else. But very often I've dealt with people who wasted themselves to absolute hell and back. And then they whinged and complained about not getting an ambulance to get chauffeured to detox. Calling ambulances costs money, and it's a whole nother it's a whole step of effort for the police officer that he doesn't want to go through. He just wants the guy to fucking leave. And so yeah, this guy's, stomping his feet, acting like a child, until eventually free ambulance the states. Oh yeah. Yeah. You would think that an ambulance would be free, wouldn't you? Right? Apparently not. No, it's if a company has to call, at least where I am, at least where I'm at, if if our company has to call an ambulance in order to get someone off property who's drunk or whatever, that comes out of our pockets. That's really fair, right? Wasn't even our fucking problem to begin with. Shouldn't be our responsibility. All that, the entire burden of that cost should fall on the drunk motherfucker himself, but that's not how that works. Anyway, so this guy pisses off our officer so much that the officer basically like throws him up against the wall. And I'm not about to call this like police brutality or anything like that. He wasn't super violent about it. He's like, "Listen, you listen. Are you actually sick? Do you actually require emergency services?" And this guy is like not refusing to give him a straight answer. Eventually he walked out. Eventually he walked out on his own. But I remember the throat hurting comment because after that point I got a throat cold. And then everyone else in my department got a throat cold. So I from that moment forward called him throat cold guy. Because he gave all of us fucking throat colds. And this motherfucker would constantly come back to the fucking restroom to do God knows whatever in it, and I would keep having to kick him out, and he would be so fucking hostile to me. He actually swung at me one time and clipped me in the face. So throat cold guy actually managed to punch me. It wasn't much of a punch, but it was enough to where it's like, oh god, now I gotta record video because someone laid their hands on me and stuff, right? Anyway, so that was that guy. I actually learned a week ago that at a different location, he was actually found butt naked and masturbating in a private restroom. So that's fun. He voodoo cursed you for waking him from his slumber. Yeah, that sounds about right. Are you obligated to answer requests for an ambulance? If not, what are the guidelines, or you just use common sense? That depends on policy, and it depends on the circumstances. Yeah, if, say, for instance, if someone's injured, or if they're having, like, a diabetic seizure, which I dealt with many times before, if anyone's having, like, a medical emergency, then yeah, we'll call the police, and oftentimes those people won't even be requesting an ambulance. They'll just be, like, in the middle of, like, pain, or, like, a seizure or something. But then other times, if someone's like, yeah, call an ambulance, or something like that, very, very unlikely to just casually honor requests like that. Throat cold guy doesn't seem like your average NPC. No, he's like kind of like he's kind of like a mid-game mini boss, I would say. Yeah. That's how I would rate him. Oh, here's a time where I was trying to catch someone for stealing, but one of my fucking coworkers screwed me over. So there's this guy, I'll call him Mr. V, right? So Mr. V, I actually had on camera for stealing on a previous occasion. And so I knew he actually shoplifted from our store. And so I actually saw him come back into our store one time. He went to like the kids department, and he got like some diapers or something. And so he was walking around with diapers and a couple other items. And It was at that point that I'm gonna go like I'm gonna go guest service him harder than I've ever guest serviced anyone before. So basically, I was going to be like in my mind, I was like one of the only people who was actually on duty that day, and so I'm like, I don't want him to steal shit, but he's gonna steal shit if I don't do something. So I decided I was just going to be like the world's most irritating guest service agent on the planet. And so I turned around the corner and I was like, "Hey, find everything all right?" It's like, "Oh yeah, I was just looking for this." I'm like, "Oh, you can find that over in our little pharmacy area." And so I walk him over to our little pharmacy area and I'm like, "Oh, it's right here. Was there anything else you were looking for?" "Oh yeah, I was thinking of if you had this thing over here." "Oh, let me check if we got that." "You know, we don't actually have that in stock. I'm so sorry." And he's like, "Oh yeah, that's okay." And so I'm just hovering around, constantly trying to be polite and nice and asking him questions. And eventually he's like, "You can leave now, man. Like I'm good." I'm like, "Oh, I don't want you to miss anything, though. I don't want you to miss anything." I, he said it's sad that he's stealing diapers. I don't think he had any kids. I've never seen him with kids. I'm kind of skeptical. A lot of these people just steal diapers just because they can turn around and sell them or do off the floor returns with them. A lot of off the floor returns are a very common thing where basically someone will take something and they'll go, "Hey, I bought this and I want to return it." "Oh, you got a receipt?" "No, I don't have a receipt." "Oh, okay. Here's the money." Like, it's fucking retarded. I will say right now, literally any company in existence that accepts returns without a receipt is fucking stupid. Goddamn retarded on every possible level. They're asking to lose money. There are some executives in a corporate office tower somewhere who are like, "Oh, but we gotta, please the customer. We gotta keep the customer in mind. The customer wants to be accommodated even when they don't have a receipt." And they're gonna retain how many fucking sales? How much business is that gonna save as opposed to the tens of thousands of dollars I personally have seen lost through stupid return policies? Unbelievable. I've literally ranted for weeks about that. It's so frustrating. Anyway, after a while, this guy he's stealing diapers to wear for himself. Well, he's full of shit, naturally. So that makes sense, right? So yeah, he eventually realizes that I'm just kind of sticking to him like glue, and he's like, "Man, why are you following me?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just trying to make sure you're finding everything all right. I don't want you to miss anything at all. If you need any assistance with checkout, I'll be right there." Right? I'm that sort of person in that moment. I'm like, I'm going to watch every move you fucking make, motherfucker. And he got really frustrated with me, and I was following him around. And this is the shit. This is the part that really, really fucking irritates me. Right? Is that he eventually went to like the guest service department where if someone has complaints, you just direct them to the guest service department so they make a complaint, or if they want to make a return or something like that. And so I followed him over to the guest service department where he's just finally getting frustrated at me. And he starts complaining to like one of my coworkers. The coworker knows who I am. They know what I'm fucking doing. They can't say what I'm doing, but they know what I'm fucking doing, right? And he's saying, "This guy's followed me. I want to file a complaint." Blah, 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 blah. And they're like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. We'll look into it shortly." And then as he's complaining at the counter, I have a supervisor. They're not my direct supervisor. They're like the supervisor of a different department. I think there might be like one of the guest service supervisors. But they call me over and they distract me from the guy up at the counter, and they're asking me, it's like, "Hey, what's going on? Is there a problem? All right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to. I'm dealing with him right now." And as she's pulled me away to talk to her in private, this guy leaves the counter, takes the diapers, walks out of the fucking store. gets away with theft, as I was trying so hard to prevent. But then my fucking that goddamn supervisor needed to get in my way, and I eventually reviewed, saw that he left, and I had to go back up to that supervisor and like, yeah, so he stole that when you were talking to me, and they're like, oh, yeah, thanks. Really shitty. I returned a pair of headphones to Best Buy and got all the money back in cash. Absolutely ridiculous. But I did have the other proof. But I did have the other proof of purchase. Um, Normally companies don't like to return things in cash unless you pay it in cash. So I mean, I don't know anything about that being necessarily a problem. People steal the worst items ever. People steal some surprising shit. Um, Sometimes you don't even realize that some things are actually relatively smart to steal until you realize a shit ton of people are stealing them. For example, um, and again, none of this stream is to be treated as shoplifting advice, but something that a lot of people steal are those, what is it called, like 23andMe kits. They're like the ancestry kits where you like take some of your blood or something like that or what have you, or you spit onto something and then you ship it off, and those things are like over $100 and they're small enough to like fit in your waistband really easily. That stuff gets put into security lockup because people start stealing that stuff. Let's see what else. There's a guy. Do I have him listed in here? If he's not listed in here, he should be listed in here. I'm not seeing him. That's an atrocity. There is a guy I nicknamed Olive Oil because everyone seems to get like they have a gig, right? Where there's one item that they always take, right? There was one guy I knew who was always stealing electric razors. There is another guy. There's a group of people who are super big on stealing jewelry, and then there are some people who are just the biggest fans of Switch games. But this guy I nicknamed Olive Oil because the only thing I knew him to ever steal was olive oil. He would go down into like our grocery section and he would take like a $20 bottle of olive oil off the shelf. He would go to guest services and he would return it without a receipt. Then he'd take that $20, he would go to the liquor store nearby and he would buy like a $20 bottle of vodka. So he would basically be trading olive oil for vodka. And that's how you become olive oil in the trespass log of some loss prevention guys somewhere. A group who's focused on stealing jewelry, I think that's called a gang. Yeah, I would call that a gang too. I'm not sure if there's like really consistent terms for like theft groups. Sometimes we just call them groups. Yeah, typically speaking, because groups can change a lot. Like sometimes it starts off with like maybe two or three people. Maybe it starts off with one person, and the next time they show up with an accomplice, and then all of a sudden you realize there's just like a fucking Ouroboros train of people and familiar faces that come in, steal shit, return it, and all that crap. It was really dumb. I was going to say you could use vegetable oil as a diesel substitute for alcoholism is fair but worthwhile. Yeah, well, people apparently like to drink Listerine as a substitute for alcohol. And it's my understanding that the Listerine they like to steal doesn't even contain alcohol anymore. So people are drinking Listerine for like I'm not even sure if it still even gives them a buzz or if it's like all they drink is Listerine now. And so they're just in the habit of absorbing Listerine I don't know why. I take a swig of Listerine to like wash out my mouth, and that stuff starts burning immediately. But people swallow this shit, an entire bottle of this shit, and it stays in them. It's fun. I can only imagine it's pain. There was one guy. He's also not on my list here. There's so much I could say talk about. There's one guy, and he's in my mind the prototypical Listerine addict. And the reason I say that is because he looks like someone who only drinks Listerine. He slurs everything he says. His mouth is always open and his tongue is always hanging out. And he's like constantly licking his lips. Like he looks like the inside of his mouth has been burned away. And he's constantly salivating. It's disgusting, man. And the thing is that this particular person would walk up to women and like gurgle at them. And it would be the creepiest shit in the world. And of course they're freaked out, and so I gotta walk up, and I know this guy is just some fucking addict, and I'm not sure if he's a pervert on top of that as well, but I'm like, dude, out! Get the fuck out! Really disgusting. Like, if you saw a picture of this man, you would go, oh yeah, that's one of our trusted longtime customers. They would never shoplift from the store. I was gonna drink the Listerine in my home right now to see what happens. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. I should mix Monster and Listerine. Let's not. Yeah, I don't advise that at all. Fake drunkenness from familiar flavors. I would buy that people who are addicted to Listerine probably get like a placebo effect even when there's no alcohol in it. I would believe it. He would walk up to women and he would just like lean towards them and like mumble something incoherent. And since he constantly has his mouth open and his tongue hanging out, and he's like leaning in, go like just to random women, it is so fucking creepy. It's so fucking creepy. And I'm not sure if he's like. It could honestly be something as simple as like, hey, do you have $2? But that's not coming across, right? What's coming across is this creepo walking up to you with his tongue hanging out, his giving you the O face, and it's disgusting just to think about. Ma'am, look at how clean these teeth are. My, what clean teeth you have. I wish I could say this guy's real name because it's a great name, but I'm just going to call him Mr. L. Mr. L is a guy who, so far as I'm aware, like, he didn't steal anything. And he maybe once or twice was, like, intoxicated, but most of the time wasn't. The simple problem with Mr. L is that he would not get the fuck out when you asked him to get the fuck out. Like, we eventually trespassed this man for a year because he would come in, go to an area where he's not supposed to be, camp out, and go like, dude, he can't be in here. And this guy was a tall motherfucker. He was super big. But he was really tall, but at the same time you can tell that he's like pathetic. He just wants to argue with you. He's not actually ever going to do anything. There are people much shorter than him who will fucking fight you. But this guy, he was just a big, tall pushover. And so he would come in, he would sit down somewhere he's not supposed to be, and I'm like, hey man, you can't be here. He's like, man, why are you always harassing me? I'm like, because it's policy, and you're breaking policy. So I gotta ask you to leave. He's like, oh man, fine. Then he leaves. Then half an hour later, he comes back. Same spot. Dude, you can't be in here. I was just talking to you about this. He's like, man, can't you look the other way just once? I'm like, no, the rules are the rules. You gotta leave. Man. And then he leaves. An hour later, he's back again. 6 fucking times this takes place, and sometimes he will argue with me for 10 fucking minutes. And I'm like, dude, I'm just doing my job. Get the fuck off private property. You were asked to leave. Do you want me to trespass you? Fine, I'll trespass you. And he was trespassed for a year. Handcuffed, brought into our tiny little white room, photographed, had his dumbass and birth date recorded. Congratulations. You could have just complied that one day, but no, you decided you were going to push the limits 5 more fucking times. There are many short people that will fight you to the death for a bottle of alkaline water. Yeah, I'd believe that. Let's see. If you have $2, translates in Listerine language, wet yelling noises. White room? What's a white room? Oh, we had cells. At least one of the places I worked at, we actually had holding cells. Where if we arrested you, we take you to a little brick room where we would handcuff you to a bench and we would close the door on you, and it would be a one-way glass. So you'd have a nice little white room just to yourself. Congratulations, you fucking thief. We've had people break out of those before, which was not fun. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, though. Basically, one time we had a guy somehow manage to break his way out of the holding cell, but he was, like, immediately showed down with a taser, and he, like, gave up immediately. So he just caused a shit ton of damage to our holding cell, and that was, like, under repairs for, like, weeks after that point. Mall prison. Let's see. Okay, so I'm really bad at remembering names, right? I am horrible with names. If I'm meeting you for the first time and you tell me your name is this, I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And then I'll promptly forget about it in like 20 minutes, and then I'll embarrassingly have to ask you, like, half a week later, what was your name again? But after working loss prevention, I got really good at memorizing faces. And if we arrested you and I wrote out a trespass for you, I probably remember your name as well. So in most cases, if someone walked into one of my stores and I knew your full name, you weren't supposed to be there. So there was one time right near the beginning where I started loss prevention where I think the very first person I ever actually wrote up a report, and I think I maybe did the trespass for as well, was this guy who I will call Mr. C. And Mr. C had come into the store, and for whatever reason, like, I think he might have been, like, trying to steal stuff at first, but, you know, we caught him out, and so he was just going to leave. But on his way out, he was making threats like, I'm going to come back and shoot you, or something like that, right? And so back then, this is well before, like, COVID and civil unrest and all that stuff, we were, like, zero tolerance for threats of violence. So we had a police officer. He came in, like, the next day, decided he was going to keep on shopping. And we and a police officer showed up, put him in cuffs, and formally trespassed him for making threats towards employees. I did not see him for maybe a year after that point. But I was aware of him because many other stores were getting hit by him. Because I was every loss prevention job, every security job I've worked at has had some sort of, like, intranet mailing list or something like that, where if other stores in the area or other stores your company runs are, like, impacted by certain people, you will get, like, pictures of them. And I would become aware that Mr. C was actually becoming fairly well known. outside of our store because he would come in and he would steal a bunch of shit. And he would get arrested multiple times. And we would get more photos of him. So I would become very, very familiar with seeing Mr. C's face over and over and over again. Until it was like something like maybe 2 years later, since that first incident, where I'm walking down, I'm walking down one of the aisles in the store I'm in, and he's walking right past me, and this is during COVID, right? Where I'm wearing a mask, but he's not wearing a mask, and I see him, and this guy's really recognizable because he's a mouth breather. He's got the mouth breathing lips, where his face is in a constant ooh, in a constant ooh position. Everywhere he goes, his face is making an ooh face, right? And so I'm walking past him and I'm like, "Hey, Mr. C, you're not supposed to be in here." He's like, "What? How do you know me?" And I'm like, "Well, believe it or not, you were one of the first people I ever trespassed." He's like, "Ah, really?" Like, well, that was over a year ago. My trespass is up. And I actually happen to remember that on a day I wasn't there, he had actually come to our store, got arrested for shoplifting. And so we renewed it like a couple months ago. And so I was like, "Oh, but do you remember that time where you actually got it renewed? You're undercurrent, man." And he's like, "Oh, man, you know, if I had a mask on, your cameras wouldn't have had, your camera facial recognition technology wouldn't have worked." And I'm like, "Solve memory, buddy." And so I managed to kick him out. But that was a very satisfying instance of me. I know that guy, and I know his first, middle, and last name, and I know he's trespassed. Get the fuck out, cunt. Nature designed for nose breathing. Why don't people use it? I don't know, but for whatever it's worth, it's much more easy to recognize you. Which, by the way, I guess I'll do a slight tangent here. People are the dumbest fucking shoplifters on the planet when it comes to your fucking appearance, right? People dress in the dumbest fucking outfits, either because they don't realize something is conspicuous or not conspicuous, or they're like so attached to their style that they refuse to do anything but, right? So I know one guy in particular, I always recognize him because he's always got this shitty little goatee, this shitty little blonde goatee. He looks like a fucking crackhead, but he's got this shitty little blonde goatee that peeks out from underneath his mask. He's never shaved it. He's never gone for like a different facial hair or anything like that. He's always had that same little goatee. And so he's so easy to pick out. And yet, he's like a serial shoplifter. He's been arrested so many times at many different businesses before. And this man is still free to walk on the streets. Fucking disgusting. There was another guy who, he was just appalled. How come I recognize him all the time? "Why are you always harassing me, bro?" I'm like, "Because you keep coming in after you've been trespassed. You're not supposed to be in here." He's like, "Oh, man, how do you know it was me?" I'm like, "Because you're the only motherfucker on the streets who dyes their dreadlocks blonde. Like, what the fuck? It's not a huge mystery who this guy is walking in the front door." Especially who's very conspicuously trying to look the other way when security looks in his direction, right? Big fucking shocker there. I remember one bitch, she was trying to steal clothing, and guess what her fucking getup was? She was in a bright yellow emoji unitard. It was a it was a bright yellow skin-tight emoji unitard. You could see it from all the way across the store. No way you're gonna get away with that. "Oh, emoji girl is back in the store." That's how it's gonna be. You walk in the front of a store you've already shoplifted before, and you're wearing the same stupid, obvious, plain as day outfit. gonna fucking recognize you. Goddamn idiots. How do you deal with threats? Is it scary? Do you get used to it? It depends, because as I said, there's like the tall guy, Mr. L. The tall guy, he was bigger than me. He was a lot bigger than me, but I could tell just based on how he talked and his tone of voice and how he interacted with me that he wouldn't do shit. He would never do a fucking thing at all. He's all talk, right? But then there are other people who are my height or maybe sometimes shorter who when they say they want to fucking fight you, they will straight up fucking deck your ass. And in terms of like just generic threats, like, oh, I'm gonna come shoot you, or I'm gonna get you fired, or something like that, it comes with the job. If you work any sort of security job in which you work with the public and you aren't able to handle threats, you're not cut out for security. That's just the end of that statement. I've had people tell me that they're going to shoot me in the head. I've had people tell me they're going to get their friends and come find me after work. I've had people tell me they're going to find me after work many times. They never have found me after work, incidentally. That's also a thing that's actually really funny. People will threaten to see you outside after work, and that's funny because that's funny on two fronts. One, because you don't necessarily walk out the front doors when the store closes. Depending on where you are, there's probably a back door. Or maybe if you're like in a downtown area, you actually park underground and then the parking ramp like exits on a completely different block, right? Like you're gonna see me after work outside the store? Bitch, I'm not even gonna be outside the store after work. I'm gonna be on the other side of town. Omni is 3'8". Okay. What was it? Oh yeah, and here's the thing. It's like, I'm gonna see you after work. They go outside, they mean mug you from outside the store for 20 minutes, and then they run out of patience, and then they leave. Bitch, I'm working for like 8 hours. I'm working 8-hour shifts, and you're going to tell me that you're gonna wait outside for 8 fucking hours to hand over my ass to me. You don't even have patience, and this was over a fucking bag of Doritos. Shut the fuck up. Get wrecked. Like, go cope harder, you little bitch. Go back to rolling your cigarettes on the fucking bus, you pussy. How do you keep recognizing me? I don't know if maybe you didn't dye your hair bright red or wear a fucking afro or dress and go. See, that's the thing, right? There's one person I knew who is really hard to recognize because she would always have like different hair colors and different outfits on, right? She'd probably steal all that shit, but that's how she got away with it, right? She would get it. The thing is that, you know, her face is so burned into my memory at this point, it's hard not to recognize her. She's got all these bags under the eyes. She's got the really pointy nose, the tight cheekbones. She's really skinny. So, sorry if I'm bumping the mic. So it's easy to recognize her face. If you just isolate her face, it's easy. But when you see them in like a profile shot as you're like walking past an aisle and they're in a completely different outfit and they're in a completely different hairstyle with a different hair color, it's harder. And it's even harder now that everyone's wearing face masks. Basically, loss prevention just went full on into hardcore mode once COVID rolled around because suddenly everyone's wearing face masks. And now you have to recognize people with only half of the face to go off of. But I still did it. There are many people who I was like, man, you're not supposed to be in here, man. Like, and they pull off their face mask and they're like, man, I was wearing a face mask. And you're like, yep, I'm afraid. Still very obvious. Blonde dreadlocks. Yeah. Let's see what else. What have I got? Sleepy Guy. I'll talk about Sleepy Guy. Sleepy Guy is a guy who did want to fight me, and he legit actually came at me. I had our off-duty officer actually chased him off property, just as he was trying to square up with me. Um, but the thing is that Sleepy Guy is really disarming because you don't think he would ever actually do anything. Because almost every time I've ever dealt with him, there's like one place on the property where he would always go and he would keel over face first into the floor and he would sleep. Like, this is like a heavy traffic area where people are walking through all the time. And for whatever reason, that particular area, he liked laying down face first, spread eagled on the floor and just sleep. And he was like just drunk out of his mind. And so, and like, Sleepy Guy's back again. And I'd have to walk over and go, dude, not supposed to be in here. I think his name started with a D. But I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to be in here. He's like, huh? I'd have to wake him up and all that stuff. I'm like, you can't be in here. You were in here 2 other times today. How many naps are you going to take? Right? And so I kick him out. And then like an hour later, he's back, face first, spread eagled on the floor. Same either. It doesn't even look like a comfortable sleeping position or place to sleep. I don't know why he loved that area so much. But then it was like that one day where he was sober, where he was where he just wanted to fight me. Like, he wasn't even sleeping. Like, he's probably the person who, when he gets drunk, he gets sleepy. But when he's sober, he's an asshole. And yeah, he wanted to fight me that one time. That's the complete inverse of other people I've dealt with, who, when they're sober, they're chill and they're compliant, and I don't have any issues with them. But then when they're drunk, they're total assholes, and they want to fight you. I had to deal with that quite a bit as well. I would say that's more common than people like Sleepy Guy. Sleepy Guy was kind of unique in that respect, I would say. Although, there was one time where there was a guy who, he didn't seem like he was homeless. Like, I would imagine, like, this was like a corporate middleman, right? This would be like a corporate middleman who is like having a really bad time at work. And so he goes to the bar somewhere and he drinks himself stupid. I keep missaying drink or drunk. He drinks himself stupid. He came into our property, sits down, and just kind of starts rocking back and forth. Like, he's like totally not all there. But he's just becoming like phasing in and out. And like, you'd have to, hey, dude, you there? And like, I'd be trying to like, do you know where you are right now? No. Okay, you're at this business. You're not able to be sitting in here, man. You appear to be intoxicated, right? I need to speak really slowly with him. And I eventually tried to get him to stand on his own, and he like couldn't stand up at all, or like for whatever reason, he had drunk himself stupid and then walked all the way to wherever we were with bags full of heavy shit. I don't know how that happened. But, yeah, he was completely out of it. And, eventually got him up and out. I don't remember if, like, an ambulance took him or not. But when he came back, like, weeks later, and he was sober as a newborn baby, and he just straight up, like, he said, hey man, I know I'm not supposed to be in here, but I'd just like to say I'm really sorry about that one time. I appreciate that, you didn't make a thing out of it, and you were cool. I've been going to treatments, and I've been sober for a few weeks already, and I'm like, hey man, that's great, excellent, good job, man, keep it up. I like, obviously I can't like bend your trespass or anything at this point, but good for you. Glad you're doing well. Nice to hear that he's sober, right? That's very rare. That's a very, very rare dose of good news from any of the number of drunk pieces of shit that you deal with on a regular basis. A lot of what I did was just kind of just general, observe and report security, but I mean, my job was loss prevention, but I guess you could say I wore many hats. Let's see. During COVID, I had a Mrs. L, who was a serial shoplifter and serial trespasser, spit in my face. And this is right near the beginning of COVID, and so everyone was like extra paranoid because like all the policy changes were new and we weren't sure what to do about it. It's like, in case of possible exposure, we're gonna send you straight to the hospital. And so this lady, who I know, she's trespassed, she's a bitch, she never listens to me, but I go up anyway and I'm like, you're not supposed to be in here. Whips her head around, right in my eye, spits in my eye, and just walks off property. Fortunately, that constitutes assault. And so we actually, the police, a police sergeant, who I still have the phone number of, he heard that, and he's like, oh, man, you fucking mess with Omni, bitch, you're going to jail. And so he tromped down after her and arrested her, brought her into one of our holding cells. While they were dealing with her, they said, you gotta go to the hospital. You gotta go to the hospital. You don't know if you have COVID now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So they sent me off to the hospital, and it was a whole non-issue. Even the people there were like, yeah, it's like extremely unlikely that you're gonna catch COVID from like skin contact, even possibly like through the eye or something like that. It's very unlikely. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And then and then they gave me like a complimentary face mask, and then I went back to work, and that was it. Or actually, no. Did I go back to work? No, I think they sent me home after that. But I was feeling perfectly fine, and so I eventually came back to work. And I found out that after they had arrested her, they're like, okay, well, we're going to charge you with assault now. You shoplifting, trespassing bitch. Let's see, how much paperwork is there proving that you're a serial trespasser? Oh, stacks of papers proving that you are a recurring offender? Gosh, that doesn't look great now. So now you got a lot of cops, got you handcuffed in a cell, are charging you with assault, and a butt ton of other shit, including criminal trespass. Wonderful. Well, guess what she did in that moment? This lady is... Here's the thing that's really irritating, is that a lot of my coworkers are very eager to blame mental illness. They're very eager to blame mental illness on people who, in my opinion, are just assholes. Like, they're just scum fucks. They're just bad people. They don't care about anyone other than themselves. Like, sure, they might be a little bit weird and antisocial, but assholes are that way, right? When she completely disregards us and ignores us and goes about her merry way and makes a whole fucking show about stealing shit right in front of our faces, that person is fully fucking conscious of what they're doing. They're not, like, they should not be given a break because they might have like some, pre-existing like emotional issues. No, she's just a bitch. She knows what she's doing. And so when she was arrested, she didn't have much of a reaction. When she was brought into a cell, she didn't have much of a reaction. But then as soon as the officers start talking about bringing her to jail, suddenly she's like, I'm hyperventilating. Then she she forces herself. I'm not sure what it is. There's a term for it. She induces herself to vomiting. Basically, she freaks out, or at least pretends to freak out, vomits all over our fucking cell. She's not fucking sick, but you know how it was. Everyone's paranoid about COVID. She's vomiting. Great. Now we got it. We can't take her to jail. We got to take her to the hospital. And that's the whole deal. A lot of people will feign illness or something like that in order to get taken to the hospital instead, because it will defer whether or not they go to jail or not. And sometimes they can just fucking walk out of jail. Sergeant and Omni will be cute together. Biological weapon attack, yeah. Do I still have the number of? Yes, I do. They sent me some interesting links regarding the U.S. Capitol stuff. They actually linked me a documentary about the Seattle riot stuff. We talk a little bit about like politics and veganism. He's like a canine sergeant, so he and I are coming from like very different positions, I would say, like philosophically or like morally. But he was really open to conversation, so I had quite a few very interesting conversations with him. He was kind of, I don't want to say he's a cool guy because he's admitted some things to me that are very disturbing and are, I would say, very unbecoming of a police officer. But A, that was just him, and B, he was still able to discuss those things politely. So, credit. Let's see. YouTube vloggers. YouTube vloggers have come into our store before and tried to record for YouTube videos. And it's not until after I found their YouTube channel that I realized that they're actually going into our stores and recording videos, shit-talking security while they're in the store. What the fuck is this and why am I subbed? I don't know. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with, the text on screen that says Q&A and stories from working in loss prevention. And you couldn't possibly be subbed because of the one video on my channel that says 10 million views on it. But, whatever. Yeah. There's these couple guys who actually run a YouTube channel. It's mostly one guy and like his friends. And they run a YouTube channel where they're just vlogging. They're just doing everyday vlogging and stuff. But they've come into our store and many other stores before, and they'll record themselves talking about how security is like profiling them and stuff. It's really funny. There was one time where he was recording one of my coworkers, basically telling people it's like housekeeping is cleaning the restroom right now, so you gotta wait until they're done cleaning the restroom before you go in and take a fucking dump. And apparently they were unable to accept that, so my coworker was getting into an argument with this person, and they were recording it, and then they decided that they were going to have their big brains analysis of how just or unjust the security lady was. It was really dumb. Have you had any Mr. Beast encounters? Thankfully not. Thankfully not. I also haven't had any of the situations where those people are doing like Instagram challenges where they'll try to hide out in your store after closing. I insist that people should be very thorough about checking stores after close because there are a lot of places people could hide, and some places are much more thorough about their perimeter checks than other stores. I've worked at places where I'm like, technically I'm doing all they want me to do, but if someone really wanted to hide in here, they could do so very easily, and they would probably get away with it for a couple hours at least. Ever encountered an ice cream licker? What is that? Are you talking about people who are like licking stuff for COVID or what? An ice cream biter? We had some kids. Juvies is the fun word for it. You can see the picture we have in the background here is indicative of your typical troop of juvies who will come in and steal a bunch of shit. Yeah. I'll get to the ice cream thing. We had a group of juvies near the start of COVID who were basically, we had heard on the radio that they were already a problem before they ever even got to our store. They were going from like store to store and like coughing in people's faces and yelling, "I have COVID. I have COVID." And they're just freaking people out and spitting and coughing on people and all that shit. And then they came to our store, and the police met them there, and they arrested one of them. And I'm not going to repeat what the police officer did because it was really bad. It looked really bad in the moment. He was, I'm not going to defend him at all. He decided, right in front of a bunch of customers, he coughed in the kid's face and said, "I have COVID," just to, like, get the kid back. But, you know, that looks terrible. If you saw that on camera, or, I mean, isolated as everyone else saw it, even I saw it when I was right next to him as he did it, like, that looked really bad. That looked really, really bad. He should not have done that. And he should have been chewed out for that, honestly, because, oh, really bad move. Bad, horrible optics. But, I mean, he's getting back at the kid. He got back at the kid, and he dragged the kid back into our cell and managed to lock him up in the cell. And the stupid kid got to get carried off to fucking, I don't know, JDC or some shit. Juvenile Detention Center. I kind of doubt they went to JDC, though. Like, our area has, like, some stupid fucking, like, juvenile quote-unquote holding center where basically if you have, like, unaccompanied juveniles, you can't just take them to jail. You basically take them to this holding center, and then as soon as they get there, they can just walk right the fuck out. So it literally does nothing to prevent juvenile crime, and that's why people fucking hate juveniles, because you can't charge them for shit. Fucking juvies should be the quote of the stream, by the way. Quote unquote, fucking juvies. Because anytime juvies walk into the store, you're like, oh, fuck. And I'm not talking about, like, 5-year-olds. And I'm not talking about, like, 18-year-olds. I'm talking about people who are in their middle teens who are either skipping school or who are out of school. And they've got no better place to go than to go steal shit from the local department store. And then the police can't do anything because their department's not going to hold the kids to any fucking standard because of fucking legislation preventing, juvenile incarceration. But then the kids realize that all they're getting is a slap on the wrist, and they're like, oh, so that $500 I made last week, I can make this week, even though they caught me. I'll just keep doing that then. And sure enough, you know, crime continues to happen, and certain people who describe themselves inaccurately as liberals think that they're doing a good thing. Anyway. Let's see. Okay, here's I got Wow Guy. Wow Guy. Fucking juvies sound suspicious given your reputation? Yes. Yes. Perhaps that's appropriate. There's a guy who I'll describe as Wow Guy. So basically, imagine this. You're, now I'm not actually minimum waged. I'm a skilled laborer, mind you. I have a very specialized skill set, and so I got hired into a pretty nice position now on the basis of that skill set. But imagine you're a minimum wage worker, and you're trying to go home at the end of your shift at the end of the day. But you can't do that until all the guests are gone and the store is closed. But the store can't close because people are still trying to leave checkout, or people are still trying to come in, or all that stuff, right? So there's a couple people dawdling around, they're trying to use a restroom last minute, or they're trying to buy something, or like it's like just after close and someone decides that they're going to go up to the cash register with like 60 fucking items and they're going to make like a $500 purchase. Like, fuck you, whoever you are. Come on. So I am I'm security. I'm trying to close up for the night, and it's like 17 minutes past close, and we're just waiting for like the last couple people to get out of the store, right? This guy walks up, sees that like our doors are like partially closed. We're just letting people out. Walks up and he's like, I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm afraid we're closed. He's like, you're closed. I'm like, yep, closed was this time. That was 17 minutes ago. It's like, oh, well, I just want to buy this thing really quick. And I'm like, yeah, well, sorry, we're closed. But it's right over there. I'm like, I know, but we're closed. Wow, really? Yeah, really. I'm afraid we're closed. Can't be letting people in here, otherwise it's going to be a constant flow of people coming in, and then we'll never get everybody out. And then that's going to delay everyone holding up, and a lot of people want to go home right now. Store is closed, I'm afraid, and that's the schedule. Wow, really? And that was his favorite word. Wow. Just, if you ever talk to somebody and you're trying to, if you're trying to make an argument or persuade them of something, and the best that they have to throw back at you is, wow, really? Unbelievable. That's what you'd call an appeal to incredulity. It is substanceless. It means nothing. All it means is the other person has taken offense, and they're trying to shame you into doing something that they think is unconscionable. Oh my god, you're not letting me into the store 17 minutes after close so that I can buy some stupid shit for $2? Really? Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. And they're constantly pushing over and over and over again. And my coworker is right next to me, and he's also doing security, and he's saying, "Yeah, I'm afraid we're closed. And close time was a while ago. Can't let you in." It's a hard no after, the clock hits 00, okay? Wow, oh my gosh, unbelievable. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously doing this? Yes, we're seriously doing this. Store is closed. The store is closed. You have to leave. You have to leave. You have to leave. I'm not going to argue with you. If you want to complain about the store hours, you can take that to corporate. That's not my job. I'm just trying to close the store right now. Leave. 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 Like, I'm seriously, it gets to the point where I'm just repeating myself. Leave. 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 Get out. And eventually I just F-bomb on him. I'm like, get the fuck out. Do you want me to trespass you? Wow, you're gonna trespass? Yes! Leave! If you don't leave, I'm going to trespass you. One more time. Leave. Okay, fine, you're trespassed. As of today, 365 days going forward, you are no longer permitted in this location. Your image is on camera. Do you have a name? No? Okay, don't worry, I'll remember your face. You can't come back in here. Don't come back. Your trespass includes this area, this area, this area, this area. And then I shut the gate on him. Fuck that guy. Those people. He was like a male Karen. Someone mentioned Karens earlier. I've dealt with Karens before, but he was like a male Karen. Need to make a tier list of these characters. Let's see here. We have a Mrs. S, who shouldn't be really a dox to say that she called herself Slash for some reason. That's not her real name, but she basically, here's how it went, right? I got a call from one of the departments where she happens to be doing like a cell phone activation, right? She's buying a cell phone, and she's getting like the employees in that department to do a cell phone activation for her. But the employees call me saying that she's saying weird stuff, talking about like she's stolen a bunch of stuff and she's weirding them out and stuff. And so I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So I head over there, and I go find where she is, and she's just sitting up at the table, and she's got a bunch of random shit just scattered all over the counter. And I just, walk over, start listening in without saying anything. She's just kind of rambling. She's just like rambling at the back of the heads of the employees as they're like dealing with like other transactions or trying to like start up her phone and stuff. And she's just talking ad nauseum about this and that and how, oh, I just got all this stuff. I can't believe how easy it is to steal all this stuff. Like, just openly bragging about how she robbed all the stuff on the counter from another store and how we're supposed to look acceptably on that from her being in our store now. And so I'm just standing there politely listening, like I'm not doing anything. Eventually she notices that I'm right there, and so she looks at me. She's still talking. She's not talking at me, but she's like staring at me as she's just rambling on about this pointless, stupid shit. And I'm just listening very intently, and I'm just giving her this stare down right back at her. And eventually, the employee turns around and they're like, okay, so for your startup, we need a name. We need your name. And she's like, oh, Slash. And she's like, yeah, I was named after the member from Guns N' Roses. I think it's Guns N' Roses, right? And so she made up this like bullshit name like Slash, like Stoneworth or something ridiculous like that. And she gives a very plainly fake name for the phone activation, and she's just becoming really. I forget how it escalates, but basically she starts getting rude and saying a bunch of stupid shit, and eventually she starts making people uncomfortable, and like they don't want to they don't want to they don't want to help her out anymore. And so I'm like, okay, well, unfortunately it seems like they don't want to it seems like the cashiers don't want to do business with you anymore, so I'm afraid you're gonna have to leave. So the paper flipping sounds. Oh, I got the book with my list in it. Got the book with my list in it. Yes, that's what this is. This is my list. Anyway, so she gets all fucking indignant, and I'm like, all right, you gotta leave for the day. And she gets all fucking indignant. No, I'm not going anywhere. And she starts dancing in the middle of the aisle, drawing all this attention to her, singing at the top of her lungs, call the cops, being as fucking obnoxious as you could possibly be, right? Endlessly, just, yeah, call the cops. You can't put your hands on me. Call the cops. You can't put your hands on me. And the thing is that a lot of people will say that. They're like, oh, you can't put your hands on me. You're just a security guard. You don't know what the fucking policies are for security guards, my dude. I, for instance, can go hands-on. I specifically took a training class so I could go hands-on with somebody. So I could restrain you if I fucking need to. But, that doesn't mean I'm going to do it just because you're like, oh, you fucking, I dare you, right? So they're making a scene. They're dancing around. By the way, not all companies do that. Some companies are explicitly hands-off, and guess what? A bunch of merchandise just walks out the door, and nothing ever happens about it. Like, companies somehow are supposed to prevent thefts just by talking nicely to people and saying, hey, could you please not do that, what you're doing? But I'm not going to directly accuse you of stealing, but I'm also not going to put my hands on you, but also I'm only going to call the cops after you leave, and that they're only going to get here, like, long after you're gone, and so that's going to be permanent loss, and we're never going to get that money back, and that's just going to be all yours. Like, sucks to work for those businesses. But in my case, that position was hands-on. But I didn't go hands-on at that time. She was just saying, you can't put your hands on me, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops, call the cops. Just will not shut the fuck up and get the fuck out. And fine, she wants the cops. And eventually, as soon as she walks out the store, Guess who's there to meet her? The cops. And she instantly changes her tune. Sure enough. Oh, great. Now that a cop is here, now she has to give up all of her stolen merchandise that she probably would have gotten away with if she hadn't, I don't know, advertised that she had stolen all of it. Genuinely, some truly big-brained people. Let's see what else we got here. I have dealt with multiple identical twins before. Multiple identical twins. You would say that if you catch someone, it's happened many times before where we've caught someone and they're like, "Oh, but you stole from us last week," and they're like, "No, that was my twin. That was my identical twin." And that sounds like complete bullshit, right? It sounds like something you'd write into a cartoon script. But it is sometimes true because there have literally been identical twins who would both shoplift from stores I've worked at. And it would happen that they would look exactly the same. They would have mostly the same hairstyle, but then they'd have like they would have like a tattoo. Like one of them would have a tattoo that the other one doesn't have. And so they would be distinguishable in that respect. There's also been times where I've confused like two different guys. Like I thought they were the same guy, but then the day comes where one's on the left of me and one's on the right of me, and I'm like, oh, they're not the same person. Fuck. And that gets you to realize that you got to be very, very discriminating on, and I mean that in the impartial sense, very discriminating in the sort of facial features that you recognize. Because if you're very general if you're very general about the particular facial features someone has, it's harder to recognize them. So if you remember someone as, oh, they're an old black guy with, a fuzzy gray beard, and they always wear like a dark green hoodie, there's going to be a few guys like that. And obviously they're not all responsible for the same thing. So unfortunately, the whole idea of racial profiling is actually super counterproductive because you're going to get a whole bunch of false positives. You got to narrow down like the very specific person. So for example, there was one guy who, you could describe him just in a general sense. Oh, he wears a white wife beater, and he likes wearing a hat with bandana, and he's Hispanic with a little bit of light facial hair around the lips and a little bit of a goatee and stuff. Like that doesn't that's not specific enough to narrow down just who he is. But if he's got a particular tattoo on his cheek that only he has, then he's much easier to recognize. And of course, sometimes you just can't help arresting the wrong guy. In the case of the identical twins, for instance, because both of them will. Well, I guess I'd say both of them are shoplifting. So you're still getting the right guy, but you maybe misidentified them. So you got one guy who's actually his brother, and guess what? His brother's been in prison since the last time he was arrested. So his brother's in prison, but you arrested his identical twin brother, who also happens to have a really terrible shoplifting habit. So, yeah. I've had that happen before. The particular guy I'm thinking of, like, we dealt with his brother for a very short period of time, and then he went to prison for something. But then this guy, he would actually, he would actually get arrested at our store for shoplifting, and then after that point he would be involved in a lot of violent altercations. I had to talk him out of fights multiple times. So yeah, sometimes I gotta be like the mediating de-escalator in order to get him to not swing at some guy who like said the wrong thing to him. It's frustrating babysitting fucking adults with toddler minds. How are you guys doing, by the way? Realize there's still 13 people watching, which is pretty good. No one's dropped into the stream, though. I'm surprised by that. I expected to have a little bit more of that. Let's see here. What else have I got? Oh, I want to talk about racism briefly. I get called racism. I get called racist. I get called racist all the time doing my job. And the thing is that it's so vacuous. What am I drinking? It's just water. Listerine, actually. When is someone gonna drop by? I don't know. I mean, no one's stopped in yet. Sunkina Fubsy, welcome. So I get called racist all the time, and it will be I'll get called racist by white guys. I'll be called racist by black guys. I've had my black coworkers get called racist by, black shoplifters. It's just the get out of jail free card, and unfortunately, I can't not help but think of the term in that way now because people have trivialized it to such an extreme degree. It has simply become a part of my actual job that I have to expect people to to completely trivialize the concept of racism. Sorry, dude. We didn't arrest you because of the color of your skin. We arrested you because you have 6 steaks in your underwear. You're not going to get out of it like that. Or here's another time. This guy's not on my list either, but I had a coworker who was scoping out another dude while he was in a clothing department. So he was in a clothing department and he was in plain clothes, right? So some loss prevention work in plain clothes. He was in plain clothes and he was trying to scope out this other guy who was a known shoplifter elsewhere in the store. So he's kind of peeking around corners, trying to be sneaky and that sort of thing, as plainclothes loss prevention does. And there's another guy in the department who saw him acting sneaky. But when he looked at him, loss prevention looked back at him, and they kind of exchanged awkward looks back and forth, like they were peeking at each other because they thought they were peeking at them. But then when they were peeking at each other, they thought they were getting peeked at, so that they peeked back. And so it's just this weird two people looking at each other in a clothing aisle. Well, apparently that was enough for this guy to just launch out and go, "Why are you following me? Why are you following me? I'm not doing nothing. I'm not stealing." Making a huge scene and basically ruining the cover for our plainclothes loss prevention guy. And he's like, "Dude, I like not." He's like, "Dude, I'm not following you. He's not no, but you're watching me. What are you doing?" And he decides to make a big scene, draw a lot of attention to himself, walk around the store, loudly complain, until finally I have to walk up to him, and I'm like, "Okay, dude, here's the deal." I was like, why are your fucking LP guys following me around the store? I'm not stealing anything. You're fucking profiling me? It's because I'm white? And this guy is as pale as I am. And the guy who was in the department with him was as pale as both of us. So he's whipping out the race card for fucking zero fucking reason. And he's thinking that he's being followed because it's all about fucking him, right? So many of these people think the world revolves around them. And I have to break it to him. And I'm like, "Dude, dead serious, 100% seriousness right now. My coworker was following someone else. He was not following you. He's still busy trying to deal with another shoplifter in the store. You just spotted him, and he was aware of your presence. Now, because you're obstructing loss prevention from doing their job, I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave." And he got really upset and really disappointed about it. And I'm like, "Okay, here's the deal, dude. I could trespass you right now for a year going forward, but I don't want to do that. Instead, if you could leave for the day, be chill, you can come back tomorrow, and I'll have no issues. Do your thing, man. I'm not, like, you're welcome to continue shopping here, but I'm just asking you to leave for the day, okay? And eventually he said okay, and then he left, and then he came back, and he had a seamless shopping experience because he's actually not one of those guys who gives off all the red flags where you're like, oh, this guy's totally fucking stealing. And bought his stuff, had no issues, found me, walked up to me and said, hey man, I'm sorry about, freaking out on you the other day. I thought he was following me and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's fine. It's just, you can't make assumptions. You don't want to jump to assumptions like that, right? It's uncharitable. And if there's any concern to be had regarding actual shoplifting, what you don't want to do is interrupt loss prevention from preventing shoplifting. So from that moment forward, I never had any other problems with that guy. That was just a one time I ever dealt with that guy. And I don't remember ever dealing with him since. But that was another situation. Someone whipped out the race card on us for a non-issue, didn't involve him, nothing to do with him, but instantly he's being attacked, right? He's being persecuted for the color of his skin. Dude, we weren't even following you. We were following someone in the electronics department. Whatever. Yeah. Let's see what else. Welcome, everyone who's jumping in. I cannot pronounce that name. And Nick, I don't know, popular YouTube. Let's see. I can talk about poop guy number 1. Let's talk about the OG poop guy, all right? OG poop guy is one of the most reprehensible entities I've ever encountered, and I don't mean that from necessarily a moral perspective. I mean that more in he's physically repulsive. He's basically imagine Santa Claus, except Santa Claus has been on a drunken binge for the last 6 months. He never changes out of his clothes, and he's gotten probably the contents of an entire hamburger stuck in his beard. Imagine him so unbelievably fucking drunk that he falls over on the ground and can't roll himself back up onto his feet. So he's basically wiggling his hands and feet for 3 fucking hours as you're waiting for the police to show up. And you're trying to talk to him. You're like, dude, you can't be in here. And he's like, super dick. Yeah, I have no idea what you're saying, man. Just super. It doesn't even sound like English, my dude. Oh, straight there. You are drunk. You need to leave. It's this. The reason why it took 3 hours for police to show up was because this was shortly after the George Floyd stuff, and they were fucking occupied, and a bunch of police officers quit. They only responded to violent stuff. If there's some drunk guy on the ground scaring away customers for 3 fucking hours, too fucking bad, apparently. The state doesn't care about that. Apparently, politicians who wanted to defund the police didn't care about that either. They would prefer the fat, fucking, poopy Santa Claus man roll around drunk on your floor for half your shift. That's what the defund the police crowd actually wanted, and that's what they got. Congratulations. That was the second time I actually dealt with him, though. The first time I dealt with him was... Actually, I didn't even deal with him. I only discovered him. I discovered him in retrospect when I was reviewing video footage to find out where on earth did this turd come from. Apparently, out of nowhere, I get a call. It's like, yeah, someone pooped in front of the front doors? And I'm like, what? No way. Sure enough, there's a fucking log right in front of our entrance. Not outside the store, inside the store, on the fucking carpet. Just a shit. Someone shit on our carpet. Right inside our store. Someone shit on our fucking store carpet. And we're like, where the fuck did this come from? And so we went back into video and rewind back, and we see the little turd on the camera, right? And we're skimming backwards to see where it disappears, right? And so we jump back and we're like, okay, the turd is gone now. So let's fast forward to where it appears, and then that's when we see him. The fat, drunken Santa Claus man, waddling very slowly through the front doors. He gets a few feet inside the store, leans to the side, shakes his leg, and out tumbling down his pant leg is a turd. And he leaves it right there, right in front of our doors. And then he goes to the restroom, and then he leaves. What the fuck? It was one of the grossest things. The grossest things I've ever seen on camera. Like, it'd be bad enough to see a guy walk forward, squat down, and, like, just shit something out, right? But for this guy to, like, twaddle his leg, to have a turd tumble down the entire length of his leg, probably smearing all the way down to his ankles, to leave it on the carpet, and then just casually waddle away. The mental image is scarring. I'm never gonna not forget that. That fucking guy. There was one time I was walking down the street and I saw that same guy sitting up against some poor person's house. Like, just sitting on their property, up against their house. And I know this house actually has a bunch of kids living in it. So some poor family with a bunch of kids has some fat, drunken, Santa Claus poopy motherfucker just leaning up against their house. I was like, oh my god, why? Let's see what else we got. I knew a bunch of guys who were involved with riots. I knew people who specifically looted our store. At least the store I was in during lootings. I was actually inside the store when a huge rush of people came in and decided that they were gonna loot the fucking place. Police chased them out shortly after, fortunately, so it was not that bad. But, yeah, some of our stores didn't survive so well. What else do we got? I'll talk about a good thief. Let me tell you about a good thief. And by good thief, I mean a guy who actually got away with shit. And I don't think he's ever been caught. So, there's this guy who I only refer to as Laptop Display Thief Guy. And I call him Laptop Display Thief Guy because as far as I know, that's the only thing he's ever stolen. But it's weird because laptop displays are not necessarily, like, complete OSs. Like, so I'm not even entirely sure what he expected to do. Whether he intended to use the computer himself or if he's actually just straight up flipping the computer. But to my understanding, display laptops tend to have, like, demo programs on them. And, like, if you're talking about iPhones, I've dealt with people who've stolen iPhones before. Like, the display iPhones, they'll rip, like, display off iPhones off the display. But the thing is they don't even work normally. So they don't work like normal iPhones. So I'm not even entirely sure what they're getting out of that. Maybe they sell it online and lie that it's a normal iPhone. Maybe that's what they do with it. Maybe they don't even know that it's not a normal iPhone when they steal it. But Laptop Display Thief Guy stole 2 display laptops from me. And So he must be getting something out of it. But the thing is that the thing that let him get away with it is because A, he was super fucking patient, and B, he had technical know-how. So the main reason why he was such a fucking problem is because he would come in all the fucking time. And the only thing he would do is he would go to our display laptops and he would fuck about on them. He would like browse his email, check Facebook or whatever the shit he does. And he would do that for hours. A lot of people do that. A lot of people do that, and you can't always really prevent that. But this guy would come in almost every single day. He would walk in and out of the store multiple times. He would go to the display laptops and he would use them for hours at a time. You have so much other shit going on in the store, whether it be injuries, illnesses, other shoplifting, you're trying to arrest somebody, someone's starting a fight, all this shit's going on. You can't be watching one guy at the display laptops for fucking 5 hours, right? So what eventually happens is we're like, okay, we can't be watching him this entire time. We got to focus on other stuff. And then as soon as we stop watching him, he does something. And what he did the first time is that he actually had another laptop with him. He brought a laptop and a backpack with him. And it looked like he was like comparing laptops, which I guess is pretty persuasive in terms of like having a in terms of having like an alibi. Oh, I'm here shopping laptops. I'm just comparing features and stuff. He never really talked to anybody, but you know, at a glance, other than him loitering around too long, I mean, that looked like what he was doing. He had his laptop next to a display laptop, and he looked like he was comparing them, right? Well, what he was doing is that while he was at the display, he was actually opening up the panel underneath the laptop and fucking about with the wires in the display to disable the security alarm that keeps the laptop connected to the display and sounding off an alarm when it gets disconnected. I don't know how the hell he knows how to do that, but he knew how to do that because he did it. After he fucked around with the wires, he closed back the case, browsed around on the computer for a little bit, and he did this really... Okay, nice. You're gonna have to be banned, my dude. Sorry. Can't be doing that, buddy. All right, so he had this really slick move where there was even an employee standing right next to him. They were like organizing the shelf or something, but even with an employee right next to him, he did this really slick move where he closed his personal laptop, placed it on top of the display laptop, and then lifted both of them up and put them both into his backpack. And so at a glance, it just looked like he was putting his own laptop into his backpack, but then sure enough, there's an empty space where he's at. So he took both laptops, somehow the display had been disconnected and the alarm had been silenced, put it into his backpack, and walked out. Boom, he got away with a fucking laptop. And I was like, how the fuck did he do that? What the hell, man? But then he kept coming back. And I'm like, oh no, he's gonna do it again. And we replaced the laptop display and he kept coming in. And he was back at the laptops again. And he would go in and out of the store. He would disappear for like 20 minutes and then suddenly he'd be back. Or he'd be gone for an hour and then suddenly he'd be back. And then he'd be on the laptops for hours at a time. And you can't keep watching him. It's too much of a fucking investment. There's all this other shit going on. You can prevent hundreds of dollars of thefts going on elsewhere in the store. But this guy's coming in, taking forever, giving no tells, until finally, occasionally you're like, He's reaching into the display case and fucking with the wires. On one opportunity, I actually managed to go over there and like, you can't be opening up the panel, man. You can't be doing that. And he just didn't, and then said nothing to me. Like, that gives me nothing to work with. And he, yet again, on a second occasion, because nobody's watching him, takes another fucking laptop. And he's so recognizable, too. His hairstyle's the same, his facial expression and his, you know, the look of his face. If I saw him again, I would easily recognize him. I would know him as display laptop thief guy. But it's killer that we never got to catch him. And again, the real bit is that he took a long ass fucking time, and he took a long ass time, and somehow he knew how to disable security devices that we don't even know how to use. How do I know about that if he never got caught? What do you mean how do I know that he never got caught? He never got caught at my store. Maybe he got caught elsewhere, but we never arrested him. We never arrested him because we never caught him in the act. He was always gone by the time we realized he had actually taken a laptop. Sorry, still trying to adjust the mic and stuff. If there was one guy I wish we had caught after, you know, my entire stint in loss prevention, it would have been that guy. Because he was a skilled shoplifter. He had some shit going on. What else? Let's see. I got groped in the restroom once. There is this very flamboyant, disorderly guy. We'll often call people disorderlies if they're just like drunk or what have you. I wasn't sure if he was drunk, but if you come in loud and talking braggadociously, that's a word nobody uses anymore. Bragging with a lot of braggadocio. I don't know how to say it. Forgive me. Being loud and obnoxious. Maybe intoxicated, just making a scene. For whatever reason, I was like, you gotta leave, man. You're trespassed. You can't be doing this. Remember, you were trying to take liquor last time? You stole liquor. You can't do that. And comes in, and when I'm looking the other way, and runs into the restroom. And so I go into the restroom, and I'm like, dude, you're trespassed. You can't be in here. And so, by the way, that's to distinguish. You can't catch someone else for stealing by going into the restroom. But if someone's trespassed, like they're already legally not permitted to be in the store, I mean, you can follow them into the restroom and tell them to get the fuck out. And so I was in the restroom with him, and I was telling him, it's like, dude, you can't be in here. And I'm trying to be nice, and I'm trying to guest service and all that stuff. Like, can't be super rude, trying to be professional and all that. But I guess he's like, man, I could make your day. You're kind of cute. And I'm like, I appreciate that. It's flattering, but still gotta go, man. Still time to go. And he makes a good reach for my groin. And he actually grabs my groin. And I'm like, okay, no, you can't be doing that, man. Nah, that's a big no-no. You're gonna have to go. He's like, oh, man. And it's particularly unsettling coming from him, too, because he's like bipolar or something, because sometimes he'll be hitting on the people he'll be talking to. Other times he'll be graphically describing how he wants to rip them apart and stuff. It was like, man, I'm gonna shoot you. Okay, great. You were just talking about how you loved me the other day. Aw, I do love you. But you're just talking about shooting me. But you're being mean. Like that's the train of logic with that guy. I suppose he was probably drunk, but I don't know. It could very well have just been personality fault. Let's see what else we got. Oh, there was one guy. I'll call him Mr. B. I think there's a couple Mr. B's, but not Mr. Beast, Mr. B. Um, so this guy was trying to steal a TV, and what his strategy for stealing a TV was that he basically went to the electronics where we kept the TVs, grabbed a TV, then he would go to check lanes and he would ask a random employee, "Hey, I'm trying to bring this out to my car. Could you help me carry it out?" And so the question would imply that it's already purchased, but people didn't know it wasn't already purchased. And so basically, he would be asking team members to assist him in theft. And sometimes it happens. Sometimes you do actually help someone walk stolen merchandise out the doors, and you don't know it's stolen until it's already happened. And that really sucks. It's really that motherfucker got me. But again, you have to have a good sense of humor about it. However, on this occasion, I caught this guy out dead to his tracks. And he was being super keen and friendly and all that stuff. And he's like, "Hey, man, I'm just trying to bring this TV out to my car. You want to help? Do you know someone who could help me with that?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I might be able to call someone who could do that for you. Mind if I double check your receipt real quick?" I was like, "Oh, man, I actually don't have a receipt. This is an order pickup." I was like, "Oh, okay, order pickup." He's like, "Yeah, got it in electronics." I was like, "Oh, well, we don't do order pickup in electronics. We do order pickup at guest services." And then he has this grin on his face, and you can see that grin just melt into a frown. Like, "Oh, you bitch." I just instantly destroy his fucking story. And he goes, oh, hold on. There's no ringing sound, but he whips a phone out of his pocket, places it to his head. He goes, "Oh, yeah? Oh, sorry, never mind. The wife doesn't want it anymore." And then he leaves. Bitch, if you paid for the TV, why are you leaving it? Right? That's the sort of bullshit you deal with in fucking loss prevention. Just straight up saying, "Oh, yeah. Yeah, I totally paid for this, but you know what? I don't want it anymore." Walks off. That's happened many times to me. That same guy, apparently, is homeless, and he actually has a wife that he's divorced from, but has joint custody of the kids over. I'd like to think that his wife is actually a good person, and that that the kids aren't getting the whole shaft, because he actually took his kids with him to steal on another occasion, where he came in, he went to like the kids' shoe department, and I saw him on camera rip tags off with his teeth off of like a pair of sandals or something. And so I walked over to him, and he was there, and he was standing right next to the packaging with the little tag on it. And I'm like, "Sir, sorry, we can't have you tearing the tags off of stuff while it's on the floor." Again, not explicitly accusing him of anything, but, "Sorry, sir, that's against the rules. You can't be doing stuff that looks super fucking suspicious like that. We don't allow it. It's kind of destruction of property. You haven't paid for it yet and all that." "Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah. And so he leaves, and I thought that's the last of that. But no, he comes back into the store with his kids, and they go right back to the fucking shoe department again. And I'm once again watching him on camera, but this time he doesn't do anything, right? He's like, I'm not seeing him pick up anything. I'm not seeing like him like tear tags off anything. He's just kind of there, right? But then they just start, he's just shuffling around, and then He's got like a little girl walking around, and he's got a kid in a stroller. And so they walk around a little bit, they loop by check lanes, they don't go through check lanes, but then they leave the store. And as they're leaving the store, I notice the little girl who's walking next to him suddenly has different shoes on. How strange. Those don't seem to be the same shoes that you had when you came in the store. On a later occasion, we actually arrested him for shoplifting when he didn't have his kids. And so while he was actually in the holding cell, I got to tell him straight to his face. I'm like, free advice. Don't take your kids to steal with you in the future. And he got really fucking mad at that. So that was a satisfying little bit of justice. Hopefully his criminal record somehow takes those kids away from him, because he should not be fucking taking care of them. Fucking asshole. That the kid was probably like maybe 4 to 6 years old. Like, they were very young. They were very young. There's been multiple families who come into the store and get their kids to steal stuff. It's fucking sickening, man. Sometimes the kids are clearly in on it. Sometimes the kids are just kind of doing what their parents say. Where it's like sometimes in the moment you can see like the parent is directing the kid to take a particular thing and like maybe put it in like a stroller or something, and they'll do that without thinking too hard about it, right? But then there are other times where it's like it's a whole family who is just living off welfare check to welfare check, and they go down an aisle and instantly the kids like strategically disperse into one is a lookout and one is suddenly grabbing stuff and putting it into the shopping cart, right? Ugh. It's fucking painful to think about. And I quote, fucking juvie. Yes, exactly. Well, not exactly, because these are kids under the directions of adults that are with them. Typically, the juvies that I always have to deal with are not with adults. They're on their own. They're just like a little school clique that decides to show up, and they're like, hey, you know what would be really cool? If we fucking stole adult diapers. Or condoms. Steal condoms. Oh, what else was I going to say? Let's see. We've had a bunch of huge fights. I've had fights in stores before. This was almost entirely after the George Floyd stuff. After the George Floyd stuff happened, suddenly the police presence thinned, and violence just skyrocketed. We had so many fights inside our stores. Police were not available in order to deal with it. We weren't able to get involved in it. I had to be the first responder to multiple people who got the absolute shit kicked out of them. Like, I'm talking about, like, imagine, like, 6 to 8 people chasing one guy into a store and then beating them into submission, kicking them while they're down, curb stomping the fuck out of them. And then I'm there to show up and to, like, offer medical aid. Like, that's my fucking job. And, man, it's so fucking frustrating. There's stuff about that I can't talk about without exposing too much information about myself, but it is so frustrating. I feel like I've had a firsthand experience with just the what is it? The fallout from the whole George Floyd shit. All this extra crime, all this, so much more theft, so much more violence. It is, man, it's depressing to think about. It's depressing to think about. I can tell you about Mrs. G, or Miss G. Miss G is almost certainly one of the people who I would agree is probably mentally ill. And that's, again, not to begrudge mentally ill people. I actually got along very well with a number of people who frequented stores I worked at, who were admittedly mentally ill, primarily schizophrenic, who, like, some days they're perfectly fine, and they're super chill, and they're the nicest they could possibly be, and they never take anything without paying for it, and just, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Great, glad you're having a good day. And then there's other days where they're screaming at a light post because the light post wants to fight them. Like that's the way it is sometimes. I don't begrudge those people, even if sometimes they misdirect their episode at me and accuse me of stealing their car, which has also happened. That was a scary situation. Let's see. Right, Ms. G. So Miss G has some sort of fucking issues. I could not tell you what sort of issues she's got. She's like gonna be talking about some weird shit. She's gonna be like babbling nonstop about some nonsense. As you're dealing with her, or she like if she sees you, she's gonna U-turn and run away because she knows you're gonna stop her from stealing. But she's still conscious of what she's doing. But the thing is that here's the deal. Miss G had probably the most perplexing and concerning stuff on them one day where we've pulled off I've pulled counterfeit cash off people before, right? I've dealt with fake checks, I've dealt with stolen credit cards, I've dealt with counterfeit cash, lots of counterfeit cash. But sometimes the stuff that you find on people just boggles the imagination. So Miss G is someone who we dealt with multiple times before. She would come in, she would like steal clothing and stuff like that. But one time we stopped her, and for whatever reason she decided to leave her bag. I don't know why. Maybe she was just done with it. But she decided to leave the bag that she came in with. At first, we thought she had stolen it from us because it had our tags on it and everything. But no. In fact, she actually came in with the bag with our tags on it, so she probably stole it on a previous occasion. But it looked like a brand new bag because, again, the tags are on it. So we thought it was brand new, but there was stuff in it. So we unzipped it, and we looked inside. And, well, I unzipped it. I looked inside. And this is what I found. I found a tag for a wig. The wig, I would later find out that she was wearing as she shoplifted other stores. Normally her hair is black, but she bought a orange wig. So I later saw her shoplifting from other stores wearing a very fake-looking orange wig. In photos from other locations that she was shoplifting at. So, tag for a wig. Also, a box of condoms. So, wig and condoms. All right, we're getting a little borderline here. Maybe a little bit frisky stuff on the side, which is a little bit concerning because she looks like a filthy person. I don't think you'd want to have sex with her for fear of dying. But you know, okay. So she's running around with a wig and condoms. Guess what else she had? She had a used rat trap. And I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about like the little flip traps. I'm talking about the big metal safety containers where it'll lure a rat in and it will trap it alive. See, so it was dirty and covered in trash. Like, it looked like she had found it behind, like, an office building somewhere. And she's like, that's mine. And put it in the fucking bag. So she has a fucking... She's rolling around with a wig, condoms, and maybe a live rodent in a rat trap. in her fucking bag. And I was like, oh my god, guys, there's a rat trap in here. There's a live rat trap in here. Fortunately, there was no rat in the trap. But fuck me, right? Like you hear stories about gerbils going places that they shouldn't be going. But, imagining this filthy homeless woman in a fake tacky looking wig with condoms and swinging rats around the place. Like, I don't want to think about it, okay? It's some screwy shit. Oh my goodness. That was probably the grossest. That's probably the grossest thing I've ever found off of someone, apart from like literal feces, But let's see what else we got. I think I've got a lot of this stuff covered already. I dealt with a guy who had knives on him once. Oh, there's Hatchet Man. I'll talk about Hatchet Man. I'll just bring up Knife Guy first. So there was a guy who had knives on him, where his gig was that he would come in, he would steal a backpack, and he would load that backpack up with food, and then he would leave. The backpack is the most expensive part of that equation, because a backpack could easily be like fucking $60, right? But outside of that backpack, he would actually have another backpack, which he had 2 long kitchen knives in. I did not know this at the time, but I tried to stop him. And, I could have gotten in a lot of trouble for that situation, but, fortunately, I saved myself on paper a little bit because when I was dealing with him, he was actually reaching into his jacket pocket. He was freaking out on me. He was. I don't even remember what he was saying, but he was reaching into his pocket, acting all hysterical and panicky and shit. And he was making movements like he was about to whip out a gun and shoot me, right? So at that moment, I'm like, I'm actually with a supervisor at the time that we're both dealing with him. So I'm like holding the supervisor back, trying to hold us back just for him to walk out. But for whatever reason, me apparently stopping him just ruined his whole day. So he went outside and decided he's going to throw his both backpacks, into the middle of the street, dance around, slam his fists against the windows, screaming at the top of his lungs, some incoherent babbling shit. Like, I had, like, my attempts to stop him from stealing shit that is provably not his was apparently, like, the worst tragedy to ever befall his life. And so what happens is one of the beat cops shows up, and I'm like, that guy just tried to steal like a backpack of our stuff, and that would have been like that might not have turned into anything. It might have just been, oh, okay, well, he got away, whatever, he's gone now. But no, he's outside flailing around, slamming on our windows, screaming at the top of his lungs, dancing in the middle of fucking traffic. And so the beat cop has to go over there, and this motherfucker gets tased and maced until, like, a whole fleet of cops show up to fucking restrain this man. Just screaming at the top of his lungs. He never pulled out the knives. Hey, Donut, what's up? He never pulled out the knives, but he had 2 long kitchen knives on him at the end of the day. He eventually got a spit rag thrown over his face. I'm not sure if you're aware of what that is. It's basically like a little net. It's a net that you can breathe through, but you can't spit through. So they'll take this net, and they'll basically close it off over your neck, so you got basically like a little sack over your head, so you can't spit at the officers. So this guy got tased, mazed, and he got the bag thrown over him before he got put into an ambulance, and the knives were pulled off of his fucking body. He came back. He came back on another occasion, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Knife Guy. And he did the exact same shit. He looped around the entire store, went straight to backpacks, grabbed the backpacks, went straight to the grocery department, stuffed a whole bunch of our shit in it, and tried to walk out. Well, this time we actually tried to perform an apprehension. And I've talked this long, but I haven't even talked about it. In loss prevention, apprehension usually operates by this... with security guards, there's something called like five-stepping, where basically you're escalating the situation based on non-compliance of the subject. We didn't really do that. Instead, we had a sort of similar thing that was also 5 steps. It's kind of a ubiquitous concept in the industry, I think, where basically, as long as you have pretty damning evidence that someone has stolen something from you, like you saw them come in the store, that's a step. You observe them select the items. You see them come in the store without the items is step 1. You see them select the items is step 2. You see them conceal the items is step 3. You continue observation, step 4, and then exiting the store is step 5. Those are your 5 steps of apprehension. If you have observed all 5 of those steps, then you are cleared for an apprehension, basically. That's not perfectly ubiquitous, and there are some variations to that between different companies, but that's the gist of it, right? And so we actually 5-stepped him, and we apprehended him. So we arrested him, put cuffs on him, put him in the holding cell. And once he was in the holding cell, he just lost his absolute shit. He started screaming at the top of his lungs, calling us psycho bitch, psycho bitch, psycho bitch. This guy had a really, really thick, like, African accent. I couldn't tell you exactly what the accent was, but he clearly had a very thick African accent. And so imagine this guy, this big guy, screaming, spitting on the glass through the holding cell doors, just screaming, psycho bitch, you are a psycho bitch, and donkey kicking the door. So he's turning around, kicking the fucking door with all of his might. So, like, every few seconds, it's like, and that's the whole office. And then the police show up, they open up the door, and they're hearing this, and they're like, hey, you got a live one, huh? I was like, yep. And sure enough, he, once again, had knives on him. Somehow he had rearmed himself with additional knives. Having off-duty police officers, by the way, is how you turn apprehensions into arrests, as opposed to stabbings. But yeah, sure, defund the police. Anyway, that was that guy. Christ. Let's see here. Hey man, love your stuff. When you upload, what philosophical positions do you hold on morality, ontology, epistemology, etc.? Well, I'm not sure that I really hold... I don't really... Like, my moral positions don't really fall under branches of ontology and epistemology, I feel. I mean, I don't know, maybe science under epistemology and ontology. I'm not even sure if this is the best way to put it, but just like natural philosophy. I mean, natural philosophy might be the dated term for it, but I don't know. I would argue that you can have a science of morality. Yeah. I talk about that on... I talk about that in other videos. So I feel it's much clearer elsewhere. Check out my moral minarchy video to look at that. Yeah. Or morality is subjective. The morality is subjective debunked video. Both of those go pretty heavy into, science of philosophy type stuff. Hatchet Man. Let's talk about Hatchet Man. I was really tempted to talk about Hatchet Man when it happens. But, hold on a second. Yeah, yeah, Hatchet Man. All right, so Hatchet Man, I don't remember his full name, but Hatchet Man had a hatchet on him, but you didn't know he had a hatchet on him. Here's how that went. So it was a relatively busy day, and this white guy, he's just he just looks like some random white guy, right? This guy comes into the store. By the way, it doesn't matter whether or not he's white or not. It's just whatever. This guy comes into the store. He grabs up a whole bunch of clothes, and he looks suspicious as fuck, right? He's looking all around. He's giving a lot of tells, and we've got him up on camera. Like we're expecting him to leave, and we're prepared to apprehend him if he leaves with the clothing, right? We've got all our 5 steps. We're ready to arrest this guy. They see security, and they drop the stuff, and they walk out. That's normally how, that's normally considered just a recovery. We didn't apprehend him because he didn't walk out with the stuff, so we did not have all 5 steps. Therefore, it's just a recovery. He dropped the clothing. We got what, $200 back. Okay, all right, whatever. They, one of my coworkers who was watching them on camera says, "Okay, guys, he just abandoned the stuff. Just keep an eye out for him in the future in case he comes back." Well, later that day, he comes back, and I'm actually nearby the doors, so I can see when people come in, and I see him come in, run into the store, grab a sandwich, turn around, run back out. And I'm like, I think that guy from earlier just took a sandwich from us. like, it's not a big deal. We're not going to go chasing him and tackling him over that, obviously. But sure enough, it was the same guy. And this time, I guess he was a little bit more ballsy, so long as it was a sandwich. But what happens next is where it kind of unfolds, where this guy takes his sandwich, runs out into the street, and somehow, mid-sandwich eating, he gets into a fight with people in the street. And he gets his ass kicked. So this guy's like high, acting like he's high as a kite, eating the sandwich, picking a fight with people out on the sidewalk. The people on the sidewalk aren't going to take no shit from him. So they actually pin his ass to the sidewalk. They're like swinging fists in the middle of the street, and eventually it's a group of people that pin him to the sidewalk and are waiting for the police to show up and take him. Which is honestly the best way that could unfold. So he gets his ass punked out, pinned to the sidewalk. Police roll up. Well, here's the thing. Police see a whole bunch of people sitting on one guy. They're like, okay, you can't be doing that. It looks like you're ganging up on one guy. So they're like, you gotta let him up. So they let him up. He gets up. He bolts down the street. And so the police start chasing him. And they're like, and we were watching this on camera from outside the store. So we're like, okay, well, police are after him now. I guess that's the last we'll see of him. It is not. He comes back again. This time, he's even more ballsy. He doesn't just want the sandwich. He wants those clothes he didn't get before. So he's got an armful of shit, right? He's got an armful of shit, and he's going to run out. Somehow the police didn't follow him all the way here. But by the time he walks out the store, the police are right there in front of him. And as soon as he realizes the cops are right there, he drops his shit and tries to bolt, right? He tries to bowl right through the cops. They grab him, they wrestle him down to the ground, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, shrieking so loudly. It eventually it creates this huge scene where there's a whole crowd watching it. I'm right there. I was probably caught on video at some point, for anyone who actually has that video, where they've wrestled this man to the ground. He's shrieking at the top of his lungs. He drops a hatchet at that moment, and I tell my coworker who's right next to it, I'm like, secure that hatchet. And so he grabs up the hatchet. It's just a solid metal fucking thing. He could easily kill someone with that. He's shrieking at the top of his lungs, screaming, using all of his using every muscle in his body to try to lift the cops off of him bodily. And it takes something like 6 police officers sitting on top of him to keep him still so that they can put the cuffs on him. He's kicking at them. He's screaming at the top of his... He's not even arguing for anything. He's not saying, get off of me or anything. He's just screaming. He's just straight up screaming incoherently. He's kicking at the cops. He's screaming. And I don't even remember how it resolves, honestly. They eventually, somehow, manage to incapacitate him and get him onto a stretcher. They threaten him with a taser, but they never tase him. And I remember in that moment, I actually did a little video talking about this briefly. This is what I was referring to at the time, where this guy, the crowd around me, like, I'm clearing space for the police officers to actually arrest this guy. But the crowd around me, as they're seeing the police officers pile on top of him, are making complete shit up. They're saying they tased him. I was right there. When you can activate the taser to make the clicking sound without actually firing the taser. Okay? A lot of people apparently don't know that. If you do that doesn't mean they're tasing anyone. It doesn't mean they've launched the little prongs from the gun, right? Which also, by the way, a lot of people seem to think stun guns are tasers. Stun guns are not tasers. Tasers are the things that look like guns. Stun guns look like remote controls. Tasers shoot prongs. Stun guns, you have to press against somebody. People don't understand that difference, and that gets misreported a lot of the time. I've had people report to me, oh, so-and-so, I saw so-and-so with a taser. He didn't have a taser, he had a stun gun. It's a meaningful difference. Report the facts. Anyway, they were saying he wasn't kicking them. I was literally right fucking there, and I saw him kicking at the officers. They were also saying that, oh, it's, what is it, 6-on-1, that's so unfair. We actually... during that incident, we actually trespassed a different lady just because she was carrying the fuck out of that incident. She was getting in the way of loss prevention and the police officers, making a huge scene, saying, this is unjust, this is unfair. Turns out, she's a serial shoplifter. We already know that she's a thief, but she didn't get a trespass because we never caught her stealing. Incidentally, though, she decided to stick her big fat fucking nose into that incident, and we're like, hey, for interference in, our job, you're a trespass. Get the fuck out. So we trespassed her because she was making a huge thing about, oh, the cops, look how unfair it is. They're all ganging up on him. This dude was fucking using every muscle in his body to shrug them off. And he had a hatchet on him. You don't know what else he has on him. Shut the fuck up, lady. I saw people commenting about it on Twitter, too. It was really shitty. Anyway, turns out that guy was a literal escaped mental patient. Apparently, he was at, like, some sort of mental facility. He was living in some sort of mental facility a long way away. Long way away. And apparently, he got out and had just been on a rampage up until they got to our store. And then they decided, I'm just going to make a whole bunch of impulsive thefts. And then he eventually gets wrestled to the ground and gets a hatchet pulled off of him. Fucking dude. Yeah. I don't think I have too many more specific examples of things that happens. I think that's about it for my list. I can talk about some other kind of offhand stuff. Can talk about stupid thief tactics. Just generic things that thieves tend to do because they're retarded. Things that thieves do that make it really obvious that they're thieves. Staring at security. Man, you're really fucking inconspicuous, man. You're like a shadow when you come in the front door of the store as far away from me as possible and staring straight at me. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to suspect you, buddy. Oh, no, definitely not you. Another thing is a lot of stores have those little pillars at the front of the store that beep if you walk out with merchandise. Those are called EAS towers, and they activate based off of, I think, RFID chips. I don't know what the acronyms stand for, but people don't know how that technology works at all. They're very, very ignorant about how that works, and so you see them do a lot of stupid stuff regarding that. For instance, they only activate off of the RFID chips. Like, for instance, let me see here. If you, I got a whole bunch of DVDs right next to me. Let me pull up like a DVD. No, I don't have one here. Let me check another one. Nah, I don't see it. Okay, so basically DVDs are a good example of products that have RFID chips. Basically, if you've ever opened up a DVD case, and in some cases, I've even found them in books. You might even find them in video games as well, where it's like a little black, and they don't always look like this, but it's a little black, super adhesive plastic strip that if you peel it off, you see it's metal on the bottom. It's like a bendable metal. That shit sets off the EAS towers. And so people don't realize that that's the stuff that's setting off the EAS towers. And so they'll try to avoid the EAS towers whether or not they actually have products that set off the EAS towers. So, for example, this is neat to listen to. Glad you like it, McMessenger. ODST. ODST, Avatar. I recognize it. So, for example, you could have somebody who... I've had someone steal bagels before, or try to steal bagels. It was the most embarrassing shit. I was standing right next to the doors. I wasn't always at the doors, but I was standing right next to the doors, and I saw this guy immediately turn the corner from one of the aisles and go towards the front of the store. And this is the thing, he's not coming from checkout. He's coming as far away from checkout as possible. So he was on the sales floor, but apparently he's leaving with nothing, right? He apparently didn't buy anything. So he's walking towards the front of the store. There's this big bulge right in his jacket. And he's going to the EAS towers. And this is what he does. As soon as he gets to the EAS towers, you notice how they're usually like, there's like one on either side, and then there's maybe one or two in the middle, just dividing them up. So if you walk out the front door, you're at least walking past like two of them. A lot of people seem to think that you need to walk in between EAS towers in order to activate them. That's not how that fucking works. They're just proximity. They're purely proximity. So he tries to walk around the outside of the EAS towers. So there's like a foot of space between the doorway, like the door frame, the exit, and the EAS towers. So he tries to squeeze through that 1 foot space. That is a really big red flag that someone's stealing from you. Is that if someone's trying to go around the outside of the EAS towers, especially if it takes more effort to do so. There's no reason to do that. If you have something with an RFID chip on it, it's going to activate the EAS towers, regardless of whether or not you're going around the outside of it. And so he tried to go around the outside of it. And of course it didn't set off the EAS towers, because they're just fucking bagels. They don't put security devices in fucking bagels. And I knew it was bagels, because as soon as he walks past the towers, it falls out of his jacket. It's the most depressing thing, where he's trying to make this really very obvious effort to steal something, and as soon as he gets out, he fucking drops the merchandise. Fucking bad. So bad. So, there, I, even as, like, loss prevention, I'll give you at least a degree of credit, like laptop display thief guy. He was a good thief. I don't like him, but he was a good thief. He was good at what he was doing. Credits, to actually being a smart thief. This guy is a dumbass. And if you can't even steal right, what the fuck are you doing? I would say most people who are shoplifters are really bad at shoplifting. Even people who are repeat offenders, they just make it very obvious, and they don't learn from previous cases where they've gotten caught. Like the fucking goatee guy, I mentioned. If he keeps getting recognized, shave the fucking thing off, man. If you intend to continue stealing shit, why are you making it so easy to recognize you? Some people don't even change their clothes, although that might be just a consequence of them being homeless and not having a lot of clothes. But then again, why aren't you just stealing clothes? You're stealing other shit. This guy is stealing fucking Tide Pods, and he's recognizable because he's always wearing the same bright green plaid sweater. Can't even commit a crime right, what good are you? It basically. So yeah, guy tries to avoid setting off the EAS towers with bagels. That was great. Another thing is that if somebody's walking out if someone is walking out the door and they're concerned about the EAS towers, if you see someone lift merchandise over their head as they're passing the EAS towers, that actually will successfully prevent the EAS towers from going off. But at the same time, we're seeing you do it. So you're not going to get away with that. We know you're doing it. If the concern was to avoid having someone realize you're stealing shit, don't do that. I would actually be less skeptical of someone who walks out and does set off the EAS towers. Because I had mentioned earlier, apprehensions go off like the 5-step thing. The EAS towers aren't even a part of that. Honestly, that stuff is really just there to scare people. It doesn't do much of anything, honestly. There are some companies that probably have policies regarding them, but honestly, sometimes they're just there to beep and scare people. And they're like, oh, it'll beep if you have something that wasn't, like, scanned at checkout. Uh-oh. They're gonna know. They're gonna be on to me. They're gonna be on to me if I don't pay. Other stupid shit people do. If people are stealing clothes, one of the most... I would say the biggest tell someone is stealing clothing is that they take the hangers off the clothing. Why? Why the fuck are you doing that, retard? If I'm on cameras and I see some lady in like the bra section or like in like t-shirts, right? They lift a shirt off the hook. They take the hanger off it, and instead of like pretend like, oh, what if I was wearing this or anything like that, and they roll it into a ball and then put it in some discreet corner of the cart, that is like 90%, 85% chance they're going to try to steal from you, right? That is very telling. That is extremely telling that someone's trying to rob you. Most people will take the hangers to checkout, and oftentimes you can even take those hangers home, depending on the company you work for. So, since the typical process is for you to have, like, your clothing, like, unwrinkled and flat on the hanger and ready to go neatly folded into a bag once you've purchased it, like, that's what makes sense. That's what most people typically do. So when people are suddenly pulling the hangers off of multiple items, it's like, you look like someone with a lot of money to throw around. It probably happens more at other companies, but I have not seen a lot of people who look at cameras or watch for cameras. It's very uncommon in my personal experience for people to be on the lookout for cameras. Maybe that's because I worked at bigger stores where like the ceiling is higher and there's a lot more cameras, and so it's harder for people to like, oh, I'm going to avoid the one that's only looks into this one aisle, right? Or so they think. We keep covert cameras in those aisles specifically to bait you into concealing in those aisles. Fucking genius. Anyway, um, uh, I have not often seen people like looking into cameras or looking up at cameras. Some people think that if you look close enough at like the black dome cameras, you can see where the camera is angled, and sometimes you can do that. Um, but in my experience, it's very rare that someone will actually look dead-eyed into the camera. And when they do, it's excellence. It's fabulous. You, sir, have given me the greatest face shot I could have possibly asked for. See, I was trying to get like a shot of you over like three different fucking shopping aisles as you're like concealing something into a bag while you have your hood up. But now that you decided to look straight up at the ceiling and look dead-eyed into my fucking camera, now I got a perfect shot of your face. Excellent, genius. What else? Bad shoplifter excuses. I would say probably one of the best shoplifting excuses I've heard, and by best I mean worst, and by worst I mean most common and irritating, is I got money, man. I got all this money. And they got like a pocket where they got like $40, if even, to flip around and like fan out in front of you. It's like, man, I don't need to steal. I got all this dough, right? They'll flash cash at you in order to throw you off. It's like, dude, I'm not even approaching you unless I know you fucking stole something. And I know you stole something. The cash doesn't make you suddenly impossible or incapable of stealing. Oh, why would I steal something when I could buy it? Gosh, it's a big fucking mystery, ain't it, genius? Oh, I can't imagine. Why would I pay for something when I could get it for free? Man, that's a puzzler. That really challenges my brain. My IQ is single digits. Single digits. If I can't figure out that puzzle. Damn. Yeah, why on earth would you steal $20 worth of stuff when you have $20 on you? I don't know. Maybe because you want $40. That's very common. It's very common to get that. Um, one time. One time, this isn't actually on my list, but I should have added it to my list. I don't have the name for this dude, or I don't think I ever got this dude's name, but there was this guy who was trying to get into the store after close, and he was lying by saying he was an employee, and I caught him dead out for it. So, store's closed. You know that the we haven't completely closed up. We're still waiting for people to leave, but it's after closing hours, right? And so I'm up at the doors trying to prevent people from coming in. Sorry, prevent people from leaving, prevent people from coming in. And this guy walks up, and he's like, hey, I'm just trying to get inside." And I'm like, "Oh, well, sorry, we're closed." He's like, "Oh, wait, yeah, you don't understand. I actually work for the company." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, we're still closed." And it's like, and here's the thing: if he was smarter, he would have said he actually worked for the store, not for the company. It's like, "Oh, I work downtown somewhere." Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't mean anything about whether or not you need to be in here after hours, now does it? He's like, "Oh, no, you don't understand." And then he reaches into his bag and he pulls out like something that vaguely resembles our uniform. And as I'm like, "Yeah, you see, I work for the same company, dude." I'm like, "Yep, Still not getting in. Store's still closed. And I forget exactly the sequence, but he says, "Look, hey man, all I'm trying to do is just trying to buy some cigarettes." And that's where I call him out, and I'm like, "Okay, number one, if you worked here, you would know we're closed. Number two, if you worked here, you would know we don't sell cigarettes. Number three, we're closed." And like he's one of many people who decided that they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna contact your supervisor," or some such or other like that. Some empty threat like, "I'm gonna get you fired." Like, "Oh, just you wait. I have some ambiguous employment with the same company as you. I'm gonna get your job." And nothing fucking happens. And I never hear of that guy again. But yeah, this dude was trying to get into the store after hours, lying that he was a team member, claiming to want to buy something that we've never sold. Top 10 ways to get arrested, be black. Top 10 ways to get arrested. Shoplift, and then when you're stopped for shoplifting, pull the race card and then insist everyone is racist. That's a great way to get arrested. In my experience, anyway. That's a very good way to get arrested. Never mind that the people arresting you are black loss prevention guys and black police officers. Fucking dumbass. I feel bad for those guys too. A lot of our like the black loss prevention and police officers that I've worked at get so much shit. They get called traitors left and right, and like, we're working for the man, and they're expecting like they're gonna get an easy way out, or like they're expecting to get like special privilege. Check StreamYard lobby. No one's in the lobby, Kalu. I don't see anyone in the lobby. They're expecting to get special privilege, but these people who you're dealing with, they're like in the middle of college educations. They're in the middle of like 20, 30 some careers. They're people who are not going to lose their jobs over your stupid shit. Oh, what's that? You want to steal $30 worth of shit? Well, guess what, dumb fuck? I'm not going to sacrifice my job over that. Who did you vote for, Donald Trump or Joe? I voted for Donald Trump. Specifically on the security angle. Maybe if my job didn't dissolve into breaking up fucking mob violence and a shit show roller coaster of rampant theft and looting, maybe I'd have considered someone who wasn't against that. Wasn't against that. I don't know. Whatever. I don't fucking... The shit that went on during that time, and honestly continues to go on, is why I have no fucking patience for the people who make casual bullshit assertions about how the law should operate. When people have no engagement with the law. Like, I'm working side by side with police officers a lot of the time. And when I have to deal with fucking juvies all the fucking time, and we can't do anything, and per policy, we can't take their picture, and even if we arrest them, they won't even go to fucking jail, and we won't get our money back, and they won't be charged out, and nothing fucking comes of it, and they'll just come back next week over and over and over again until finally there's a rash of fucking juvenile carjackings, and people are like, I wonder if I'm regretting voting for having our police service slashed. It's a goddamn fucking mystery. Like, The zero bail thing, too. Zero bail is so fucking retarded. You know what bail reform is? Bail reform is eliminating bail insofar as you being able to pay your way out of jail. No, you should be held accountable. You should not be able to pay your way out of responsibility, right? That doesn't seem fair. That seems like putting a financial barrier on justice, in my opinion. That's what that sounds like. Like I'm no fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of Trump. I think he's an idiot, and I'm working on like a video talking about the whole election shit and why. Even that, even now, I still think he was an idiot. I thought he was a fucking dumb fuck when I voted for him. I didn't want to vote for him, but when everyone else, even the fucking Libertarian Party, fucking kowtowed to goddamn Black Lives Matter, what am I left with? You know what? Fine. You want the wrecking ball? You want the wrecking ball to get a second term? We'll get it goddamn close. What did you miss? I'm afraid you missed most of it, actually. Basically talking about stories of loss prevention. Zero bail was literally the stupidest shit I had ever seen. It was only recently I actually heard a justification for the bail thing, and those people are just not thinking of it in the same way that I'm thinking about it. Like, when I think of the concept of bail just in and of itself in isolation, without any case examples, it just sounds like someone's able to pay their way out of being held accountable to a crime. That's not to say that, like, they're still not getting, like, a court date or anything like that, but they could just walk away from the fucking court date. They can just not show up to court because they're paid their way out of it. And when you make that option free, you just keep them in jail. I would just keep them in jail. Oh, but here's the thing: is like they're being held even though they're not convicted of a crime. All right, well, here's the thing. You know what naturally comes from that if you actually allow that to unfold? What happens from that is you realize that there's an undue burden on keeping people in jail, wasting space and all that stuff, when ultimately they're not going to be convicted for a crime. If it's likely that they're going to be convicted for a crime, then there's pretty goddamn good reason to make sure that they actually see that court date. And waiting for fucking an eternity for a court date to roll around has nothing to do with bail. That's other bureaucratic cancer that also needs to be fucking reformed. So before you even worry about bail, there's far bigger shit to worry about, such as court fees, and who should be paying court fees, and why taking someone to court shouldn't be a cost in and of itself. I'll talk about nationalizing concepts. How about we nationalize justice? God. Why don't we make justice free for all as opposed to something that you gotta pay out of pocket a hefty amount of money for? I'm still working security, by the way. I'm just not in loss prevention anymore. What I'm doing now is much more involved than even what I was doing previously. And I'm still getting into it, but I'm doing that full time now, and hopefully at some point I can talk about it. But yeah, I just had all this shit happening for the last few years that I want to talk about it. Popular YouTube, I really don't know what to say about you. You just seem like you're trolling, honestly. Ooh, Hudacola? Hudacola, are you actually in the Discord? Give you a shot. What's up? Nothing? And they're removed. Okay, never mind then. All right, well, if anyone else... I'll give you one more try, man. Hello? Hello?
Hi. This is
Yeah, nah, nice one. Nah, I'm not doing that. Not gonna take that bun. Nope. And if my intuition is correct, you're lucky you evaded a ban this time. All right. If anyone else has any questions that I can answer, I'll try to answer them. I would say probably the stuff that I saw. The stuff that I guess there's some interesting like stats I could probably rattle off of like the most successful, or rather not the most successful, but the shoplifters that get caught with the most amount of merchandise. The shoplifters get caught with the most amount of merchandise are I would say people who pretend to be employees, and they're like pretending to be warehouse employees or something, and or people who are stealing Apple products, because Apple products are really inexpensive. Um, there's one of the people who got caught for the most amount of people who got caught for the most amount of stuff is, I think, been someone who was just straight up trying to take like tens of thousands of dollars of Apple merchandise, and they were like dressed as an employee or something. But they got caught and they got charged out for all that. I'm kind of disinclined to talk to you, popular YouTube, because you don't seem to be speaking sincerely about anything. Let me see. I've dealt with a lot of people who refuse to wear fucking masks. I had to be the mask police for the while, and to a degree, I still am the mask police. Um, you know, the thing that I've never understood is the whole I have a pre-existing medical condition. People refusing to wear face masks because I have a pre-existing medical condition. Oh yeah, what's that? Oh, I have asthma. Oh, asthma, huh? So you can't wear a face mask to prevent you from getting COVID because you have a comorbidity of COVID. It makes reverse sense. Makes reverse sense. Like, I can't prevent myself getting contracting this illness because this illness is much more likely to kill me. I've had asthma before. For a very short period of time, I had asthma. Or at least I thought I had asthma. I had like the inhaler and everything. But yeah, I have asthma and have no problem with masks. I can't imagine having a problem with masks if I had asthma. But I've heard multiple times that, oh, this, if you have asthma, then that's okay. You don't need to wear a mask. It doesn't make any sense. So someone who's going to be heavily breathing, possibly breathing much more, is not going to be wearing a mask. And at the same time, if they catch fucking COVID, they're much more likely to die. I don't get that. Why did you kick out Huda-Cola? Go ahead and ask Awakened K. Awakened K knows what's up. Not really a question, but I was showing my brother your Verge PC Supercut as we built his first budget rig. I know it's not really relevant to this, and it's old, but you know. Hey, that's cool, man. Thanks. I can imagine doing that myself sometime. I have not actually made my own computer, although Mac had. I've used Mac for a long time, and I think I might retire from Mac next, considering the stupid shit Apple's been doing recently. Not even just like social justice wise or anything like that, but just stupid shit that they're doing with their OS. That I'm like, wow, that's a huge unnecessary obstacle that you're imposing on my experience with your computers. Maybe I shouldn't buy your computer. Plus, I'll have more opportunity to modify things and upgrade stuff that I want. That'd be cool. All right, popular YouTube, you can just kind of go away now. Bye bye. Xavier Stelmachowski, welcome. Does the new job pay better? Does it feel more worthwhile? Yes and yes. I was very frustrated with the loss prevention job I had. It was actually loss prevention was actually pretty fun on busy days for like the first year at least, and but then COVID happens, and then George Floyd stuff happens, and then it just kind of went to shit. They changed a bunch of policies, did a lot of stupid stuff, and we just decided, hey, you know what? We want to have more violence and more theft. And I was like, and you're putting me in a security uniform to represent that. How about no? Anyway, yeah. So, the new job I'm at is full time, unfortunately, but that's honestly my biggest gripe about it at the moment. Other than that, it's much more chill. Still a lot of stuff going on with it, but I feel much more comfortable doing that job. And it's more suited to my skills, I guess you could say. So it'll be interesting to talk about that at some point. Run a virtual machine for Windows just to play Steam. Use Linux. I'm kind of tempted to go for like maybe an Ubuntu thing or something like Ubuntu. Because I remember seeing Ubuntu like a few years back, and I was like, you know what, this seems like a cool middle ground between Windows and Mac. But I don't know how compatible versus non-compatible that is with other stuff, or how easy or not easy it is to just do like, I don't know, like a virtual machine or something. Um, what else? Hmm. I don't know. Any other questions offhand, guys? Kind of wore my throat out talking about this stuff. Ubuntu is interesting. I know a few people who use it. Not sure about it myself, though. All right. Could very well be a try it till you hate it sort of thing. That's often the case with many products. Yeah, I don't really trust you, Hudicola. I don't trust you, man. Well, I think I'm going to end it off here unless you guys got anything else. I think I went on a pretty solid rant on this subject. I'm pleased with that. Let's see here. Pop that up. see. Start winding down. Oh, wow. I'm not sure if you guys can even like hear the music or if it's too loud or too quiet or anything like that. I've kind of had mixed luck with it. Building a PC has really boosted my confidence over the years and I felt really accomplished. That's cool. People have been calling it like adult Legos and I'm kind of skeptical of that. I think Legos are adult Legos, but actually, a bunch of people at my new workplace are really into Legos for some reason. I guess it's because you can't be like super creative with PC building, or at least in the same capacity that you can elsewhere. Music sounds good. Excellent. I would guess. I would guess PC building is more along the lines of, like, it would remind me more of... I mean, it's all about, like, optimization and stuff, right? So I imagine I get the same sort of appeal, or at least a similar appeal to that as you would playing, like, a mech sim or something like that. Which, by the way, I've always wanted to play, like, a solid mech sim. Like, a really good mech sim. The best mech sim I feel that I've ever played in terms of like the actual mech sim aspect is Chrome Hounds for Xbox 360. Unfortunately, Chrome Hounds was primarily an online only game and the tutorial sucks. So you pretty much just got the editor and then a couple shitty missions and that was it. And there's like nothing else to it. So that's a pretty worthless game to buy nowadays, unfortunately. I have tried... Hello.
Hello? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's up?
Nice. No, I just wanted to hop in here since the stream is winding down.
Yeah, that's cool.
Not a whole lot to add. Just...
Turn down the music just a little bit more. Upgrading parts can be a little tedious, I imagine. Oh, Huda-Cola is hoodoo? Interesting. That was not my impulse. That was not my impulsive belief, but let's see.
I think it's fair. She does sound very similar to Poop Sock.
Yes. Yes. But let's not speak of them who shall no longer be named. There's been... This stream has included more references to feces than any other video I've ever created. And I'm not proud of that. So, I'd rather not push the limits, so to speak. But yeah, I guess the thing that's bugging me about the Apple computers is that was it Mac OS Catalina? Mac OS Catalina has a new feature, quote-unquote feature, where you need to certify like every single third-party app in order to run it on a Mac computer, which just sounds like the stupidest shit in the world. It's like you basically have to get special permission from Apple just to sell something on the App Store. And this is them basically forcing you to get everything you would ever want from the App Store. So if there's something not offered by the App Store, then you're out of luck. Go fuck yourself. Because they won't let you install it normally outside of outside of the App Store. That's really frustrating. That hyper proprietary shit is the same reason I it's the same reason I went with Android rather than iPhone. I was like, I'm, much as I tend to like Mac computers, like I am not indebted to them by any means. Might as well say some of the stuff that I'm working on now, as long as I'm here. I am working on another anime trash episode. I actually got a couple in the works right now. I am working on an episode regarding the election shit, and it's not about, like, fussing with election fraud or any of that. It's mostly just to do with, like, media censorship, that sort of shit. Because a lot of people still like to take a lot of that shit on blind faith and only go off headlines, and it's very frustrating. But at the very least, now that Trump is out of office as of, well, for me it's tomorrow, then we shouldn't have to deal with him anymore. And then it will no longer be about Trump so bad, Trump this, Trump that, blah, 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 blah. Now it can just be about all the stupid shit Democrats are doing, and then Democrats actually have to thrive on their own merit, because it can't always be, hey, we're the anti-team, we're the anti-the other team, therefore. Back to the establishment's neocons and neoliberals duking it out. As though it was 2015 all over again. You have any thoughts, Buster?
Not especially.
No.
I mean, I'm happy that Trump's finally going to be out of the news. I don't need the fact that Trump stubbed his toe on his kitchen door Monday night to be on, and I don't need Trump's every move to be beamed directly into my eyes. So it's going to be fun to finally have him out of the news. Speaking of the election you mentioned earlier, do you believe it was legitimate?
I believe there's fraud in all the elections. And I think most reasonable people accept that there's more than likely fraud in our elections. But the real question, as people have pointed out, is whether or not it's substantial enough in order to swing the vote. Do I believe that? No, I don't. I don't have a lot to persuade me otherwise. And ultimately, the real thing that is of concern is whether or not the vote even matters in the first place, because it's not us electing the president, it's the electors electing the president. Shodite.
Hello, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Shodite.
I'm doing fine.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. It's been almost a year.
Yeah.
Since I last talked to you verbally.
I haven't been in VC a lot.
Yeah. Which is understandable because, well, you're employed, I guess.
Not necessarily. It's just that I've kind of turned away from doing debates as often as I have. Sometimes I just go on a spree of jumping into VC and doing debates with people, and then I just kind of get burned out on that, and then just work on stuff quietly in the background.
I've kind of already burnt myself out from debates from 2017 and 18.
Oh yeah.
Because I've just done a shit ton of it. I just usually they will end up the same kind of outcome where it's we both we just both agree to disagree, and I really hate that outcome. So it's just I don't know. I haven't really I guess
I would
even
much
tried to initiate debates.
I would much rather admit that I'm wrong than say agree to disagree. It's such a vacuous phrase. It means nothing. It literally means, okay, this debate accomplished nothing. Goodbye.
Hudacola, you're joining with 2 separate accounts to try and join the stream is probably a bit of a red flag to most people. So, maybe there is 2 of you, but one of you is not acting in good faith.
Huh.
So, I'm feeling better about kicking you, as I did.
Sad.
In fact, I'm just gonna kick you up, because you're just taking up space. Get out.
Man. I literally was like watching your stream, and then I just like took like a nap for some reason, and then I just came back.
Now I'm still here. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
How have things been going on your end?
In terms of what?
I don't know. Life, work.
I mean, well, school, like during like I guess the end of like 2020, I wasn't really doing that well. I was, my grades dipped dramatically, I guess, like drastically, and but I'm just sort of like recovering from that now, and just sort of just moving along, and the school administrators like and stuff like that were like talking to me about like changing my schedule a little bit, so then like I can, I guess I can that can increase my work morale, and so right now I'm just pacing myself, I guess.
I get you. Sometimes you got to do that.
But everything else has been pretty much fine, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing loss prevention for a few years now, so I had more than just like a break. I had kind of gone into my most recent job on the grounds that I wanted something different, and that I didn't want to do what I was doing for much longer. And 2 years later, still doing it, and then a whole bunch of other shit happens, and I was like, I just need a change, and so I managed to nail down a relatively coveted job, which is pretty cool. Like it's gonna look damn good on a fucking resume, in my opinion. And I'm currently still in training, working on that, and it's going well. Plus, since it's full time and be paid more, and it's not the sort of full time where I'm like totally, absolutely, physically exhausted when I get home. Fortunately, so.
Yeah.
It's a bit more manageable, even though I do only have 2 days off again. I like part-time. I wish I had part-time job.
Part-time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how that, like, I guess, like, I don't really know kind of like the ways of employment, I guess, because never been employed.
Okay.
But, yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, if I managed to get away with working less because I don't actually spend my money on a lot of things. I don't have a car, so I don't have to pay for insurance. I don't have to pay for gas. Maybe it's like a transit pass I pay for on occasion, but other than that, I can get pretty much everywhere I need to go on my own.
Yeah. I guess it can't be really the same case as me unless I live to the city I live near. I guess I can use transit more, but public transit, or at least in my state, is very prevalent because of how small it is. But I guess the reason why for my lack of employment, because I mean I do plan on at least doing something, either that be retail or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I did apply to a few jobs, being a grocery store porter or something like that, but
That should be relatively easy to get.
Yeah. But still, I haven't really heard anything back. It's kind of hard getting a job now, especially being a teenager.
Oh yeah, definitely. Man, I don't envy you at all. I mean, when I tried to get my first job, I'll admit I wasn't trying as hard as I could have because I was still, living with my parents, and I didn't have like a huge financial pressure to
Yeah.
get a job. But at the same time, like I was doing routine applications, and I still did not get employed for a long time. And ultimately, and it ended up being I was able to get my first job. I'm not sure if it's entirely on that. It's my opinion that the job I actually got had like low fucking hiring standards, but the I had volunteer work on my resume, and I also had a family member who also worked in the same industry. So both of those I could say, hey, I got this going for me, even though I'd have no work experience. Please hire me. And they hired me. So
Interesting. Maybe I should throw in the race card and say,
maybe, yeah.
"Ah, you
I
didn't
am-
hire me
You can do
because
that.
I'm black."
I'm so sick of seeing those equal opportunity employment forms in all the applications. And I've now discovered, like, ever since I saw those years and years and years ago, well before like any of this stuff kicked up, like I was like, you don't need to know that. This shouldn't affect anything. It affects tax credits. Fuck your tax credits. I am what I am. Fuck you. And so I always put choose not to disclose.
I really hate listing off my race on fucking applications. Really, like I really don't.
Yeah. What gets me is that when they say we are an equal opportunity / affirmative action employer.
Affirmative action, eh?
That's an oxymoron.
Yes, it's not just an oxymoron, it's a contradiction.
Wow. It's like,
And
oh,
yeah, I got passed over for a promotion in my loss prevention job because according to the person who took that new job, she said, and I quote, they really wanted a person of color. And she's dead ass as pale as I am. And the only difference between her and me is that I actually follow the rules, and she speaks a little bit of Spanish. That's literally the only difference. At least so far as I can tell. Like, I'm very aware that my coworkers, like, bend the rules a lot, and I'm like, I'm gonna be by the book, right? I'm gonna try to be as by the book as I can, and that it just hasn't served me. It hasn't done me any favors, because I was not the one being considered for, promotion and advancement. And I'm like, you know what? On top of that, on top of everything else, and the stupid shit that you're letting slide, and how you're endangering, like, employees and stuff like that, on top of that, you're gonna be fucking racist towards me? How about go fuck yourself? I quit.
fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I really wasn't aware that speaking a little bit of Spanish made you a person of color. It's
Apparently.
news to me.
Yeah. It's news
So,
to me, too.
Omni, if you ever want some Spanish lessons, hit me up, man. I'll make you
yeah.
a person of color ASAP.
Awesome. I'll sign up for that. No problem. I got a little money to kick in that direction now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. But I don't know. I guess like my future within the workforce, I absolutely kind of oblivious to it because like everything is so uncertain
Uh-huh.
right now. Well, when it comes to terms of this year, I guess I'd say be kind of like in the beginning of the month, I was kind of like gaining my confidence back. I was like, oh, maybe I'll apply to a few jobs. But then again, I see that the new strand of COVID starts spreading throughout like this section of the U.S. I'm like, shit. It's gonna be 2020 part 2. You fucking
We all
kidding
heard
me?
how much you loved COVID-19, so introducing COVID-20.
Yeah, basically.
Thanks, UK. Swear to God. Ugh.
This is why everyone should go vegan. Because this is all animal-borne viruses. H1N1, swine flu, avian flu, all of that. Mad
That
cow
too.
disease.
Maybe that should start popping up. I think it already has before. Like I know, like vegan gains and stuff like that is already like advocated for it. Like it's like popping up in like vegan, like advocacy.
What?
Is
Like
that a thing?
saying these illnesses. I don't know if this has been before now, but like these illnesses, especially COVID-19, because of how like stupid, like how it just stupidly affected everything. And that was like an animal-borne illness. That should really start, I guess, becoming prevalent in vegan advocacy. I don't know, maybe.
Well, even if we like just straight up didn't, even if we just straight up like didn't accept that any of these particular illnesses are. Buster, is that you?
No, go ahead. Just having little mic issues.
Okay. Even if we were like just to dismiss out of hands that the like any of these illnesses are caused from like factory farming or anything like that, it should be no surprise at all that those same environments are breeding grounds for illnesses.
Yeah.
You get a lot of humans, you get a bunch of humans, poorly nourished humans, very up close to each other, all in each other's space, sharing, mixing up bile, blood, this and that, and having them breed. Yeah, you're gonna get some disgusting shit out of that.
Ugh. I think throughout history, I guess even the past 100 years, it'd be fucking common sense to stay away from that shit.
Well, it's been much longer than that, and still not common sense yet. So,
well, like even like the past 100 years, if you look past, and like if you just look through that, like it would already just. I think at this point should be just common knowledge, and that everyone should just be instilled into their brain, like I guess like at least like school has, at least for me, like school has talked about these illnesses. They only like kind of briefly talked about the origin, and then they just like started just listing off the effects and everything, and it's not like really like talking about like the origin and prevention, which I thought was pretty stupid. Like they were, like when they were like talking about swine flu and stuff, that like science class.
Someone finally made the meme that I was always wanting to make, where basically every single year it's a different threat to humanity. It's H1N1, it's avian flu, it's Code Orange, it's anthrax, it's Ebola.
Ebola.
This year it's coronavirus. Now, like, I'll grant there's a shit ton of cases, but at the same time, you can't deny that this thing does swamp people's attention, and it just makes hypochondriacs to so many people.
Yes. I'll call it the God's item box.
God's item box.
Where you just like, oh yeah, he hits the item box from like Mario Kart or something like that. And then like, oh, it randomly chooses what fucking virus is like that's gonna come out, like human threat coming out like in the next 2 years or something like that.
Well, it also scales depending on like where you are in the race. So when things are looking relatively good, that's when the item box spits out the worst shit. So after this, I imagine the item box is gonna go chill on us. We'll get a couple bananas. And then give it another like 20 years, and then they'll go, oh, blue shell, motherfucker.
It's like, oh yeah, we're doing good. The economy is great, and the life expectancy has gone up like a little bit and everything. And then oh, blue shell, motherfucker. It's kind of how I guess 2020 felt like in a way.
You know, that feeling that, oh, I am I am living through a significant period of history is not a good feeling, and I wonder whether that's probably not a good feeling most of the time. It's like, oh,
Maybe.
I have landmarked this ability to land a rocket on a comet. Wow,
Wow.
that's cool. Oh, I am in the middle of a civil war that will dissolve my country from the history books. Maybe not so great.
I don't know. I think it depends on who you are and what you have done, I guess. Like with this, like particularly, it's been a fairly boring sort of thing, like to go through, and that's gonna go into the history books. Of course, it's gonna go through the history books because, how like it affected the entire world.
Hmm.
But like you're sitting at home legitimately all day. At least in my case, like literally, I guess like beginning of like 2020, I was just sitting at home like literally for like 2 weeks, like before, like yeah, after school just like shut down. I just was just sitting there just like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna just stay at home. And then like, oh, they implemented online classes and stuff like that, which was stressing me out during that time
Mm-hmm.
because I just didn't really adapt well at times. But when summer came, like it was just kind of the same thing. Like we're just staying home completely.
Yeah, I can't imagine that's been mentally or emotionally exercising, shall we say? Or maybe
Yeah,
it is in like a bad way.
yeah. I'm gonna start writing manifestos or something like that by the end of 2021 or something. If a new lockdown were to start, I might start a new radical ideology or something.
Hmm.
It's like this is too much. Lockdowns have created so many problems for me. That is it.
Hmm.
But my school situation now is sort of like kind of like in this awkward like sort of scheduling, I guess, because there's because since they want to reduce the amount of students, like it's not like completely online because like there's some students there physically and some students are doing online, but it's being conducted on this at the same time for some reason, I guess. But I
Hmm.
think it was very unorganized in the beginning, but I think it's kind of like organized in a way after just like a little while. Even though the schedule still tires me out because one class can last for like it lasts for like 1 hour and 18 minutes, which I've never like had that on a regular basis. I usually like am like used to like class being like 40, 50 minutes, but yeah, it's just kind of a weird, like they call it like a hybrid schedule, like where it's just like a mixture between physical school and online school. Which I don't know how long that's gonna last.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, really. It's kind of hard to put myself in that position.
Mm.
I have done online classes before, but I guess I at least appreciated the very clear distinction between when I'm home, I don't need to give a shit about school.
Exactly. I mean, it's a really weird feeling to have to give a shit about school in your home. And the thing is though is that what I find funny is how I remember this one particular day where I was just not having it, and like I was just sitting at my computer, and we're supposed to have our webcam on, so I had my webcam on so and stuff, but I just had my hoodie on, like I just did not want to like be like to appear engaged in the class, and apparently that was concealing my like trying to conceal my face, and like my teacher told me to stop. I'm like, but how the fuck can you regulate what I'm wearing in my own house?
Dude, that just reminds me of when I was in school. There was just a generic rule against wearing hats, and the
I
justification being that hats are distracting. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but if someone's sitting next to me while we're both like going through like a group reading of something, and the person next to me is wearing like a White Sox hat or something, like my attention is not being diverted away to this guy's fucking hat. If
Yeah.
your attention is being diverted to that person's hat, what is your problem, Teach?
Seriously, it's not even. Oh man, it's just. I just.
Although, to be fair, regarding the whole hoods thing, people who had hoods and long hair were able to conceal earpieces, so they could be listening to music during class and stuff. So.
Oh yeah. But
What I do to conceal my ear, I just have like giant headphones on that are plugged into my computer, and under that I have my earbuds. So.
But the funny thing is, though, is that those students would fail anyway because it would be very obvious because, like, their volume in their earphones would be so loud that you can hear it.
How do you mean?
Like, they would have, like, let's say, like, they would just have it, like, on, like, let's say, like rap, for example, like, trap rap specifically, where it's, like, constant, like, beats. You can fucking hear that behind you, or like across the room when someone has that like blaring from their earbuds.
Yeah.
So then they would usually fail because the teacher would hear it.
Now, I was not a fan of hearing that stuff on the bus ride to school.
Oh yeah, man.
Man, I had to. I went to like a really ghetto school during the time when Superman by Soldier Boy was popular.
Oh.
And they would play that ad nauseum on the radio every day.
Jesus Christ.
That was no. I was
was
not
around-
into that.
That was around the time I actually kind of like started school. I was, pretty young, but like, yeah. But at that time I was kind of in a ghetto school, I guess you could say. I guess because there's like, but yeah. But then again, I kind of moved to different town, different district, and just a lot more diversity.
Thankfully, that school sounds like it got taken over by, fucking political ideologues. So, nice to hear that the teachers still have no grasp on their goddamn students. And I was out of there before that happened, so
yeah,
no regrets there.
Oh well.
Yeah.
But being in school, especially I guess during the BLM craze, I guess back in 2016, wasn't really much of a. It wasn't really good because I was in middle school during that time.
Oh yeah.
So, but then again, when I actually because that's when I actually started becoming political, and when I actually was looking into it and yeah, this is just a shitty movement. Like, why the fuck would I why would I support it? And I started deviating. There's just a whole bunch of students just hounding, shutting me down completely. And the teachers would, of course, do nothing about it because they would agree with them.
It's got to be so aggravating.
It really is, and that's happened for basically my entire middle school career and parts of high school. Middle school was worse, but high school was more I guess mature. But then again, some students are still pretty retarded, and they don't really know how to deal with opposing views.
I thought my stint through school was bad, but now people who are going through this wave of schooling are telling me I'm in the wrong. You don't understand. It's school education is actually very important. I mean, you see, what if they don't know how to add 2 and 2? What are they gonna get a job at? Huh? You don't understand.
Oh, man.
As if that's the only way you can learn that, and as if mandatory schooling is a necessary path to that. Yep. Xavier Smith asks, what are ghetto schools like? The ghetto school I went to is very close to, downtown area where I lived at the time, and it was just run by the students basically. the teachers did fucking nothing. There's constantly fights going on. There's a lot of gang talk. People casually talking about how they almost shot someone at the bus stop. I fucking hated that school. Like, there was, I think, a grand total of 2 people in that entire school that I could tolerate. And one was a teacher who gave zero shits about anybody else, except me. And then there was another student who I cannot... Actually, I take that back. There are 3 students, one of which was actually kind of a friend of mine during that time. He actually lent me Final Fantasy X, and I played Final Fantasy X all the way through on his borrowed game, which is fucking great. And then there was another 2 who... We had, like, a movie-making class where we got to make short films and stuff, and everyone else made, like, some boring shit. But I got paired with, like, 2 Asian guys, and they're like, we like martial arts movies. And I'm like, we're gonna make some martial arts movies then. And so we made, like 3 short films where they're beating the shit out of each other with, like, foam sticks and stuff. It's super cringy looking back on it, but... That was really fun, and we went far above and beyond anyone else in the class at the time.
Wow.
I'd have a fun time beating people with foam sticks.
Oh, yeah.
And not having any consequences.
Oh, definitely.
Sounds awesome.
We like, I specifically shot and edited it, so, like, anytime, like, someone got hit, they were, like, thrown all the way down the hallway and stuff like that. Like, yeah, it was pretty cool.
That is interesting because I remember this because within my school they have, like, this little, like, thing, like, with student like council, like, they were like, so, like, during, like, the student president like of the council, like, elections, they would have this thing, like, where they, like, for their campaign they would, like, make a video. And I remember 2 of my friends were campaigning as president and vice president, and they made this video, and, like, they're, like, kind of, like, reenacting a bully scenario where, like, one guy pushed the other one down, and then they all, like, they had, like, a group of people all, like it was clearly, like, fake, like, them, like, stomping, but, like, lightly you could see. But apparently that was too violent for my school.
Oh,
like,
wow, really?
Yeah,
it's like some hokey reenactments of, like, physical violence.
Yeah, something like that, and, like, I guess because it involved bullying also, even though, like, this school has, like, shown many, like, bullying PSAs where, like, it was like like I think it was, like, just more, like, you know, like better acting. You know, like, you can't pull the, oh, but that could be mentally traumatizing to people who have been bullied because you've shown shit that's worse.
Like,
but,
what,
you know,
like active shooter drills and stuff like
yeah,
that?
they've seen, like, they've showed that, like in the auditorium, you know, with big projector, you know.
Oh, yeah.
No bullying PSA will ever beat. Everyone, we have an announcement to make. Stop. Sorry, I'm just dealing with a little pest problem.
Yeah, I picked up on that.
He just kind of sits on my shoulder and interrupts me.
Sits on your shoulder?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's a joke, friends. He's across the room and is very bad. I don't like him. He's trying to assault me right now, so that's fun. I'm just gonna mute my mic and deal with him real quick. I'm just gonna mute my mic and deal with him.
He should probably induce vomiting once he gets in the cell.
Probably.
Well, it's refreshing to do this again. I have not done this in a while, and the music. Oh my god! I'm just gonna. Okay, Buster. I'm just gonna remove you. I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Oh, I'm miss having the background music too. I feel like that adds a lot.
Add some personality, I guess.
Yeah. I got some more thinking music that I can add into the playlist now too, so I can switch it up a bit.
Nice.
Anyway, I think I should probably end it off here.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for dropping in, Shodite. You as well,
No problem.
Buster Blader, and everyone else in the chat. Maybe everybody else. Maybe a couple exceptions to that rule, possibly. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.